Chapter 54. Apart from Ji Dong himself, no one understood why Fury would challenge a newcomer who had just entered the Enyang Hall. This had never happened before. Ji Dong walked in front of Fury. He could clearly feel that the closer he got to the top disciple of the Enyang Hall, the greater the pressure he felt. Furthermore, the aura from Fury's body was not intentionally released. It was a powerful aura that emanated from within. As he passed by Fury, Ji Dong did not stop and directly walked out. Fury also followed, and the two of them walked out of the canteen one after the other. In the canteen, Long Tian and Shui Ruhan looked at each other. Shui Ruhan said, "I'll go find Zhu Er. I hope I can make it in time. What's wrong with the Thunder Emperor today? He hasn't challenged anyone for a long time. I heard that his cultivation is already close to 7 crowns. Since the Heavenly STEM Academy was founded 500 years ago, he has the highest chance of breaking through to 7 crowns before the age of 30. He's the best candidate to become the next dean." Long Tian said in a low voice, "I'll go with you. However, I don't think Fury will do anything to Ji Dong. Don't forget that Director Zhurong is both their teacher. Perhaps the Thunder Emperor is here today to promote Ji Dong." After leaving the canteen, Ji Dong had barely taken 2 steps before Fury had already overtaken him. He said in a low voice, "Let's go to my room. It's more well-equipped." Ji Dong glanced at him and nodded. Beside Lady, he only had one feeling. It was the same feeling he had when he was at the foot of the main peak of the Frost Mountain Range, looking up at the towering mountain peak. What kind of experience could make a person so strong, to the point that the aura he unintentionally exuded was suffocating? Fury brought Ji Dong into the depths of the Enyang Hall. They passed through the 3rd level and entered the 4th level that Ji Dong had never entered before. The further down the Enyang Hall went, the smaller it seemed. At the 4th level, the passageway was clearly narrower, but the air was still clear. Fury didn't stop and continued down. He followed the stone stairs to the 5th level. The 5th floor was completely different from the ring-shaped passageway of the previous 4 floors. Upon entering, the first thing that came into view was an oval hall. The hall was about 5 meters high, and on the ground in the center, there were 10 vivid and lifelike totems of the 10 elements. There were 10 doors around it, and on each door, there was a corresponding totem. Fury brought Ji Dong to the door with the picture of a fire phoenix carved on it. A fiery red medallion appeared in his hand. Looking at the material, it was similar to Ji Dong's medallion, but the color was darker. The medallion was imprinted on the depression of the door. The door opened, and the Thunder Emperor walked in first. He followed Fury into the room. This was a wide stone room that was 300 square meters in size. It was much bigger than the room Ji Dong had been assigned to. The moment he entered, Ji Dong was immediately attracted by the huge bar on the left side of the stone room. The bar was over 15 meters long and 1.5 meters tall. Behind the bar were 10 wine cabinets, filled with all sorts of fine wines. The wines in Ji Dong's storage bracelet were just ordinary wines that could be found on the market. However, the wine cabinets in Fury's room had at least 100 wines that Ji Dong had not seen since he came to this world. The faint fragrance of wine lingered in the stone room. There were wine cups of all sorts on the bar, as well as wine shakers made of different materials. Seeing this, Ji Dong could not help but purse his lips. Didn't he also have a similar room in his previous life? That was a place that only belonged to him. The variety of fine wines he had was even more than the Thunder Emperor, Fury. Subconsciously walking to the front of the bar, Ji Dong's gaze stopped on a simple and unadorned wine bottle. The wine bottle was brownish yellow in color. It was obvious that it was carved out of natural crystal. Just this wine bottle alone was definitely worth a lot. Ji Dong turned his head to look at Fury and asked, "Can I take a look at it?" The Thunder Emperor, Fury, said calmly, "You are qualified to make a cocktail like Yi shoots the 9 suns." Ji Dong nodded his head and carefully held the wine bottle in his hand. There was still about 70% of the wine left in the bottle. He opened the cap and instantly, a strong fragrance of wine filled the air. Taking a deep breath, Jidong quickly capped the bottle and said, 30-year-old bowling whiskey. Good wine. Fury looked at him in surprise and said, You can determine the age of the wine just by smelling it? Jidong smiled calmly and said, If I can't even do this, why should I challenge the Bartenders Guild? There are many different ages of bowling whiskey, but there are 3 main ages in the market: 12, 17, and 21 years. Your bottle of 30-year-old bowling whiskey is very rare. A 12-year-old bowling whiskey has a rich buttery sweetness and is light and easy to drink. A 30-year-old bowling whiskey is spicy and has a stronger smoky and spicy taste. The fruit and floral aroma are also more serene and noble. The color of the wine also becomes fuller as it ages, from a 12-year-old honey color to a 17-year-old golden yellow, then to a 21-year-old golden red, and finally to a 30-year-old beautiful pure gold. The liquor also becomes longer and longer as it hangs on the glass. Those wine droplets that refuse to slide down the glass wall are called angel's tears. When tasting whiskey, look at the color first, then smell the aroma. After the wine enters the mouth, the tip of the tongue can distinguish the honey, vanilla, fruit, smoke, spicy, salty. The unique smooth taste of bowling whiskey originates from 4 natural ingredients unique to the North Water Empire's Grand Province. First, barley with a faint smoky taste that tastes slightly sweet. Second, peat in the Grand Province's countryside. If lit, it will have a pleasant smoky smell. Third, clear mountain spring water flowing in the Grand Mountain Range in the Grand Province. Fourth, the pure air in the countryside is also an irreplaceable special ingredient that creates high-quality whiskey. It is these elements that support bowling whiskey's outstanding position in the continent. After coming to this world and bartending for 4 years, Jidong had absorbed all the knowledge of alcohol in this world. He combined it with his experience from his previous world and came up with his own set of theories. Aside from cultivating as an evil spirit master, he spent most of his spare time on alcohol. The Thunder Emperor Fury listened quietly to Jidong's words, not interrupting at all. Only when Jidong finished did he say indifferently, Just based on your knowledge of bowling, you are qualified to taste my 30-year-old bottle of bowling. Jidong smiled faintly and placed the bottle of 30-year-old bowling whiskey back to its original spot. He shook his head gently and said, However, it is not qualified for me to taste it. If it was a 50-year-old bowling, perhaps it would be qualified. A light flashed in the Thunder Emperor's eyes. It was like 2 bolts of cold lightning flashed in the quiet room. He said, Are you saying that my 30-year-old bowling is not qualified? Jidong said indifferently, In your wine cabinet, there is only 1 bottle that is qualified for me to taste. If you are willing, I do not mind drinking a cup. The expression in the Thunder Emperor's eyes calmed down. He asked, Which one is it? Jidong walked to the rightmost cabinet and took out a bottle of wine from the corner. He said, This is it. If I am not wrong, this bottle of wine should have a special title for it. It is called the Stone of Destiny. When the Thunder Emperor Fury saw Jidong take out that bottle of wine, his expression changed slightly. He said, You know about the Stone of Destiny? Jidong smiled faintly and said, I have heard of it. More accurately speaking, it was the style of this bottle that attracted me. After carefully looking at the pure gold label on it, I believe that my guess is about right. With a cherished look in his eyes, Jidong looked at the bottle in his hand and said, This bottle itself is a work of art. It is made of far blue porcelain, and the carved ruby on the bottle cap represents the Stone of Destiny that has great symbolic meaning in the history of the North Water Empire. For generations, the Stone of Destiny has always been used in the coronation ceremony of the North Water Empire's Emperor and Empress. It symbolizes the supreme power bestowed upon the members of the royal family. This earth-shattering and precious whiskey is sealed in a unique far blue porcelain bottle with a pure gold stopper. The stopper is inspired by the ancient North Water Empire's grand sword hilt. Its noble status is incomparable, and it is the best gift for extreme achievements. In the Grand Province there are two famous whiskies in the world. One is bowling and the other is Fahrenheit. Under the circumstances of the same age, the taste of bowling whiskey is above that of Fahrenheit. The only exception is the Stone of Destiny. It is meticulously blended with Fahrenheit that has been aged for more than 38 years. The age of the cellar, its long history, and its extreme glory are incomparable. The thick fragrance of cedar and almonds, the fragrance of dried fruits, and the oak fragrance of sherry lingers for a long time, causing one to be intoxicated upon smelling it. It is the ultimate experience for a connoisseur. There are only 10 bottles in the world, and I have smelled it once in Fire City. Although it was only for an instant, I have firmly remembered the smell of the Stone of Destiny. At this point, Ji Dong's aura, which was originally far weaker than Thunder Emperor Fury's, had reached a whole new level. Relying on his focus on the alcohol, he was no longer at a disadvantage when facing off against the Thunder Emperor. If my guess is correct, you should have a unique love for whiskey. In your collection, more than half of them are different kinds of whiskey. From the way they are placed, I can tell that your attainments in the research of whiskey are no longer inferior to mine. It's just that you don't have my universal love. After placing the Stone of Destiny back in its original position, Ji Dong walked out from behind the bar counter. He faced the Thunder Emperor and calmly said, "I've seen your wine cabinet. How do you want to compete now?" It was unknown if the Thunder Emperor Fury had been affected by Ji Dong's words, but the powerful expression on his face had clearly weakened. He said, "It's easy to obtain good alcohol, but it's hard to find someone who understands you. If you hadn't challenged my place, I would be willing to drink and chat merrily with you today. You're so young, yet your knowledge of whiskey has already reached such a level. No wonder Chen Xiao and the others weren't a match for you." Ji Dong smiled slightly and said, "You must be the Thunder Emperor Fury. I've heard of your name not long after I arrived here. Enyang Hall's top student. How about we make a bet?" After arriving in this world, this was the first time that Ji Dong's interest had been piqued in the field of alcohol. The Thunder Emperor Fury's attainments in the field of alcohol made him qualified to discuss and research with him. Fury frowned and said, "What do you want to bet?" "If I lose, I'll give you the position of president of the Central Plains City branch of the Bartenders Guild. Even if you want the position of the Enyang Hall's top student, it won't be a problem." A strong self-confidence accompanied his deep and resounding voice. Ji Dong shook his head and said, "I'm not interested in the Bartenders Guild. I'm only interested in your alcohol. If I win, I hope that when I mix drinks in the future, I can take any alcohol I want from you. Even if I use up all of it, you can't stop me." Even the confident and domineering Thunder Emperor could not help but hesitate when he heard Ji Dong's conditions. The alcohol here was his collection that he had collected over the years. Originally, he had brought Ji Dong here with the intention of using his collection to intimidate this arrogant brat. However, he had not expected that not only would he fail to intimidate the other party, he would instead be intimidated by Ji Dong's profound knowledge of alcohol culture. The Thunder Emperor did not drink the Shoots the Nine Suns, but from the descriptions of Chen Xiao and the others, he knew that he had most likely met his greatest enemy in the field of bartending. However, he was still very confident in himself. Previously, he had gone to the North Water Empire to take the 9-star bartender test and had passed it successfully. He had become the second 9-star bartender in the entire Five Elements mainland after the Bartenders Guild's president, the god of wine, Du Sikong. Although his background was not as profound as Du Sikong's and he would not consider himself the god of wine, he did not believe that a teenager could surpass him in this aspect. Ji Dong laughed and said, "You don't dare to?" He was in a really good mood. How could he choose good wine in the market? Even if he had enough money, How could it compare to the wealth of an experienced bartender? If he could get his hands on all the alcohol that the Thunder Emperor had, at least for the next 1 or 2 years, Ji-dong would not have to worry about making drinks for the flaming bar. With so many good ingredients he would be able to make countless types of cocktails. Therefore, even he could not help but covet them. The Thunder Emperor Fury said angrily, "What do you mean I don't dare? What are you going to use to bet with me? The stakes have to be fair." Ji-dong smiled and said, "It's very simple. If I'm not wrong, you shouldn't be able to make my shoots the 9 suns, right? You came to compete with me because you want to use your bartending skills to defeat me. My stake is the bartending skills of the shoots the 9 suns. What do you think?" Hearing Ji-dong's words, Fury's heart immediately palpitated. He clearly remembered how pale he looked when Chen Xiao described Ji-dong's shoots the 9 suns. His knowledge of bartending was even higher than Chen Xiao's. He clearly knew that it was definitely a bartending skill that could challenge the god of wine, Du Sikong. If he could learn it, it would not be as simple as having another skill. With his knowledge of bartending, he could derive his understanding from it, and it would definitely bring him to a higher level. No matter how good the alcohol was, it had a price. However, this magical bartending skill was a priceless treasure. Chapter 55. Naturally, Ji-dong understood what the Thunder Monarch was thinking. If he were in Fury's shoes, he would not have any reason to reject the Thunder Monarch's challenge either. The temptation of top-notch bartending techniques was simply too great. "All right, I'll bet with you," the Thunder Monarch said in a deep voice as he made up his mind. Ji-dong's expression also turned solemn. This battle was equally important to him. Since the other party had dared to challenge him even after knowing about his bartending techniques, Ji-dong knew that the other party was extraordinary. Furthermore, after seeing the Thunder Monarch's collection, Ji-dong understood that he had finally met a worthy opponent in bartending after coming to this world. Just at this moment, loud banging sounds rang out. "Fury, you rascal! Open the door!" The furious roar caused the entire room to tremble. After all, even if the thickness of the walls here could not be compared to the city walls, they would not be any weaker than the city gate. Fury was stunned for a moment. He was too familiar with this sound. He took a few steps to the door and opened it. The door opened, and 2 figures swept in like hurricanes. The first person pushed Fury aside and walked into the room. Even with Fury's strength, he did not resist at all. This person was Ji-dong's teacher, Zhurong. The second brother, Zhu Rong, who was following behind Zhurong, still looked the same as before. However, the anxious expressions on these 2 brothers' faces were exactly the same. Zhurong saw Ji-dong with one glance. Ji-dong only saw a flash of red light, and Zhurong had already arrived before him. Zhurong pressed one hand on Ji-dong's shoulder, and surging and scorching fire element instantly engulfed Ji-dong's entire body, causing it to heat up. Zhurong heaved a sigh of relief, and his expression relaxed slightly. He said, "Fortunately, I came quickly. Actually, the 2 of them should have arrived earlier." However, Ji-dong had said that he was going to his room in the canteen earlier, causing the Zhurong brothers to make an extra trip. As a result, they had arrived a little late. Looking at Ji-hao's anxious look, even though Ji-dong knew that the reason why Ji-hao and Ji-rong valued him so much was because of his pair of fires, he still couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. It was always nice to be cared for. While Zhu Rong was checking Ji-dong's body on the other side, Zhu Rong's second brother was enraged. He pointed his finger at Fury's nose, leaped up and yelled, "Fury, you little bastard, are you trying to go against us? How old are you? How dare you do this to my brother? Challenging a 14-year-old child, I'm ashamed for you. Let me tell you, if Ji-dong loses even a single hair, I'll torture that WRM of yours to death. Don't even think about getting a single magical weapon from me in the future." Fury, the Thunder Emperor, was a little confused by the scolding. In the entire Heavenly STEM Academy, The only people he couldn't and dared to offend were the Zhurong and Zhu Yan brothers. Even with his strength, he couldn't help but smile and say, "Martial uncle, please calm down first. You have to tell me what's going on first. Is Ji Dong your brother?" Zhu Rong's second brother snorted and said, "That's right. Ji Dong is my new little brother." Before he could let the matter rest, on the other side, Zhu Rong had already glared at him angrily and said, "Fury, you've really grown up. Bullying the young, bullying the weak, and bullying your own little junior brother. Very good, very good." This time, Fury was really depressed. He hurriedly took a few steps forward and said with a bitter smile, "Teacher, I've just returned. Ji Dong is my little junior brother? You've accepted another disciple?" "Humph." Zhu Rong snorted coldly and put an arm around Ji Dong's shoulder, ignoring Fury. Seeing this, Ji Dong immediately understood. So the senior brother that Zhu Rong and Yang Bingtian had mentioned was actually the head disciple of the Yin Yang Hall, Fury, the Thunder Emperor. This discovery not only made him re-evaluate his teacher's strength, he also didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the same time. Ji Dong looked at the Thunder Emperor, and the Thunder Emperor happened to look at him as well. The two brothers both had expressions of amusement. Ji Dong said, "Teacher, I think you've misunderstood. My senior brother didn't challenge me to a fight." Zhu Rong was stunned for a moment and looked at Hyoheim in confusion. On the other side, Fury had already said impatiently, "That's right. Teacher, no matter how useless I am, I won't bully a teenager. Moreover, I'm the one who should be wronged. My little junior brother has already come to my door and slapped me in the face. The Central Plains City branch is in chaos, and I've only just returned to seek revenge." "Wait, what do you mean by slapping him in the face?" Second brother Zhu could not help but ask. Fury glanced at Ji Dong and snorted angrily. "Not long ago, my little junior brother set up a table at the entrance of the Central Plains City branch of the Bartenders Guild and challenged us. With his bartending skills, no one in the branch was a match for him. He even wrote a banner saying, 'Does the Bartenders Guild dare to fight me?' After winning, he swaggered off and left. He even said that he was here to apply for the Heavenly STEM Academy and wanted to seek revenge. Hence, he asked President Du Sikong to come to the academy to look for him. Teacher, you often say that I'm too arrogant, but my little junior brother is not inferior to me at all. Chen Xiao told me that my little junior brother even said something like, 'If you have the ability, you can do this too.' Tell me, isn't this slapping me in the face? If I don't seek revenge, I won't be able to stay in the Bartenders Guild in the future." Zhu Rong looked at the two of them and said, "In that case, you brought Ji Dong here just to have a bartending competition with him?" Fury nodded and said, "That's right. We haven't even started, but didn't you and Martial Uncle rush over?" Zhu Rong looked at Hyoheim suspiciously and said, "Is that really the case?" He knew about Fury's bartending ability. As a teacher, he had received a lot of filial piety from Fury. Among the 5 elements, people with the fire and water attributes loved to drink the most. Therefore, Zhu Rong was even more proud of Fury being the president of the Bartenders Guild than him being the chief disciple of the Yin Yang school. Naturally, the 2 directors of the water attribute were also very jealous. Ji Dong was not even 15 years old, but his bartending ability was actually unrivaled in the Bartenders Guild in the Central Plains City. This was something that Zhu Rong couldn't understand. Ji Dong nodded and said, "It's like this. Master, you and big brother Zhu Yan came at the right time, so please bear witness for us. I made a bet with my senior brother." He then briefly explained the bet between the two of them. With Zhu Rong and Zhu Yan as guarantors, as long as he won today, Fury's wine collection would not be able to run away. Of course, Ji Dong could also see that with Fury's personality, he would not go back on his word. Fury said straightforwardly, "Little junior brother, since you are the teacher's new disciple, and your bartending skills are so high, even if you lose today, You can just tell me what kind of wine you want in the future. I still have this bit of authority. Jidong said, Thank you, senior brother. However, I will not lose. In terms of yin and yang magician cultivation, there was a huge gap between him and Fury, the Thunder Emperor. However, in terms of bartending, it would not be so easy to convince him. Zhu Rong and Zhu Yan looked at each other. Zhu Rong chuckled and said, This is good. No matter who wins or loses, we will still have wine to drink. Boss, let's watch from the side. Zhu Rong nodded and walked to the side with Zhu Yan. They each pulled over a stone chair and sat down. Jidong was young and short, so he really could not use Fury's table. Thus, he simply pulled over a stone table and used it as his temporary bartending table. Fury said, Little junior brother, how do you intend to compete? Jidong said, It's very simple. Each of us will mix a type of wine and taste each other's creations. Then, teacher and big brother Zhu Yan will taste it. I think the outcome of the competition should be decided then. Fury nodded and said, All right, then we'll do it this way. You can use my ingredient. Jidong shook his head and said, There's no need. As he spoke, he took out a crystal bartender from his storage bracelet and placed it on the table in front of him. On the other side, Fury, the Thunder Emperor, also took out a bartender. However, his bartender was a little special. It was bright silver in color, but it was not made of silver. Jidong glanced at it and could vaguely feel that it should be a bartender made of some kind of alloy. It was slightly larger than ordinary bartenders, and it seemed to be quite heavy as well. Fury and Hyoheim said, Let's not mix at the same time. This way, we won't be able to observe each other's bartending technique. Let me be the first to start. Jidong had the same idea. He also wanted to see what level Fury, as the president of the Central Plains City Bartending Association, could reach in the bartending field. Fury washed his hands in the sink next to the bar counter. His gaze instantly became sharp, and he seemed to be immersed in a special mental state. Jidong could vaguely feel a special suction force being released from Fury's body. It was like a magnet, and even his own body could feel the suction force. At the same time, the fire element in the room began to fluctuate violently and revolved around Fury in a special trajectory. Fury's right hand moved in the direction of the wine cabinet, and a bluish-purple electric arc lashed out like a long whip. Under Jidong's astonished gaze, a bottle was already flying in the air. Under the bluish-purple electric arc, the bottle cap opened, and as if a hand was holding it, the liquor was poured into the bartender that Fury had already opened. Thunder magic power? A big question mark appeared in Jidong's mind. At the same time, Zhu Rong's lips moved, and his voice was transmitted to Jidong's ears through the magic power. Your senior brother's magic power is also a mutated existence. He has the thunder element, which is a mutation of the fire element. It has a more powerful explosive power, and lacks some characteristics of the fire element, but also some characteristics that the fire element doesn't have. Under the same level, almost no magician can compete with him. At the same time, Jidong was secretly shocked. No wonder he was called the Thunder Emperor. He was indeed worthy of his reputation. To be able to become the chief disciple of the Yin-Yang school, he definitely relied on his own strength. However, the thunder he used now was obviously not his true power, and the Yin-Yang crown was not released, so it was impossible to see his true level. Fury's movements weren't very fast, but each of his movements was extremely precise. He poured the 4 ingredients into the shaker in the same way. Then, under the traction of another electric arc, the shaker with the lid covered flew up into the air and was pulled by the electric arc to spin in the air. Bluish-purple lightning surrounded the shaker made of alloy, forming a strange scene. In the crackling sound of thunder, the shaker had completely turned bluish-purple, dancing up and down in the air. Under the strong stimulation of the lightning, the shaker gradually became transparent, and the liquid inside could be vaguely seen jumping continuously. A trace of understanding rose in Ji Dong's heart. No wonder he used an alloy shaker. This was to borrow the conductivity of metal. Could it be that Fury's cocktails were related to lightning? What would the taste of alcohol soaked in lightning taste like? Vaguely, in front of him, there seemed to be a door slowly opening. Ji Dong's eyes lit up, and he vaguely thought of a new path for himself in the future. Crack! In the midst of an explosion, Fury let out a low roar. Thousands of electric arcs suddenly erupted from his body, but these arcs did not spread outwards. Instead, they formed a huge electric ball around his body. The alloy shaker kept bouncing around in this electric ball, and the entire shaker seemed to have become a small electric ball within a huge electric ball. At this moment, a white sun crown appeared above Fury's head. From his movements, Ji Dong clearly saw that among all the 9 peaks of the sun crown, 6 of them had glaring bluish-purple lightning symbols, symbolizing the level of the 6 crowns. Above the crown, there were even 4 bluish-purple stars shining brightly. Level 69. Ever since Ji Dong started cultivating, this was the highest level of yin-yang crown he had ever seen. At the same time, he couldn't help but gasp. Is this still a student? Perhaps even the deans of the advanced academies in the various countries on the continent do not have this kind of strength. While he was still in shock, something strange happened again. Fury shouted again, and the purplish-blue shaker that was surrounded by lightning flew up rapidly, as if a purplish-blue electric ball had spat out a purplish-blue electric bead. The purplish-blue electric light on his body instantly turned into a purplish-blue electric dragon that was 5 meters long under his hands. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it chased after the electric bead. It happened to bite the electric bead in its mouth. The entire lightning dragon looked extremely realistic. Lightning surrounded it, and its scales could be seen. As it looked around, lightning flashed. The entire 300-square-meter room was filled with waves of numbness. Ji Dong quickly activated the origin yin-yang crown in his chest to prevent himself from being attracted by the intense lightning. After the electric dragon bit the electric bead, it circled in the air once before returning to Fury. The electric bead was spat out and it floated on the bar counter. The electric dragon also turned into thousands of electric arcs, forming many bluish-purple electric rings that floated down and entered Fury's body. Chapter 56. Looking at Fury's movements, Zhu Rong nodded in satisfaction and said, "Very good, your control has improved again. You didn't waste even a little bit of power." Fury, the Thunder Emperor, showed a rare smile on his face. The sun crown above his head silently disappeared and returned to normal. His face didn't blush, and he didn't even gasp for breath, as if nothing had happened. Mixing drinks with lightning bolts, lightning dragons playing with pearls, everything that Fury had done had shocked Ji Dong greatly. He had never thought that mixing drinks could be done like this. At this moment, he finally understood that this was a completely different world from his previous life. In this world, magic power was the ruler of everything, and it was the same for mixing drink. Ji Dong had been proud of his skills in mixing drinks, but they were all based on the fact that magic power didn't exist. The beauty brought by Fury in mixing drinks, and the taste of the cocktail that even Ji Dong couldn't tell, made him sink into his thoughts. Fury didn't hurry to open the shaker. The shaker was still surrounded by lightning bolts, showing a bluish-purple color. He made a gesture towards Hyoheim and said, "Little brother, it's your turn." Slowly raising his head, a trace of determination flashed in Ji Dong's eyes. He waved his right hand and 9 bottles of drinks appeared on the table in a row. He knew that if he didn't show his best skills, he wouldn't be able to defeat Fury's drinks, which were made with the power of lightning bolts. Although E Shoots the 9 Suns was powerful, it couldn't reach Fury's level after all. Lightning dragons playing with pearls, the atmosphere that Fury had created when mixing drinks was already more powerful than Ji Dong's E Shoots the 9 Suns. No wonder Fury was so confident. However, how could Ji Dong, who was once the god of wine, give up so easily? Even though he had just learned a little bit about the secret of mixing drinks with magic power and hadn't fully understood it yet, with his 30 years of experience, he wouldn't be defeated so easily. Seeing Ji Dong take out 9 bottles of wine, Fury was stunned for a moment. As a top bartender, he knew very well that the more ingredients there were, the more difficult it would be to mix a drink. Whether it was the mixing ratio between the ingredients, or the combination, the difficulty would increase exponentially as the number of ingredients increased. Ji Dong took out 9 ingredients at once. This was something that even he himself couldn't do. In his memory, he had only seen Du Sikong succeed once with his exquisite control of the water element. Could it be that his little brother could do it too? Ji Dong proved Fury's guess with his actions. The 9 ingredients were poured into the crystal shaker one after another according to a certain ratio. The shaker glowed faintly, and the 9 kinds of wine mixed in the shaker, forming a turbid color. Fury immediately realized that the 9 kinds of wine Ji Dong used were all different colors. There were 2 kinds of mint wine, blue and green. Although the other 7 kinds of wine were common in the market, they were also different in color. Closing the lid, Ji Dong took a slight step back and closed his eyes. His hands hung naturally on both sides of his body, and his 10 fingers were slightly shaking in a certain rhythm. It was the first time for Zhu Rong and Zhu Yan to see Ji Dong making drink. Judging from Fury's previous actions, they had already realized how much Fury valued Ji Dong. Lightning Dragon playing with pearls was Fury's specialty, and he had earned the qualification of a 9-star master bartender with this skill. How could an opponent who could make him use all of his strength be ordinary? While they were thinking, Ji Dong had already started his action. He abruptly opened his eyes, and an incomparably arrogant aura instantly burst out. His clear eyes reflected the turbid color in the shaker, and he seemed to have entered a special state. His left hand reached towards the shaker extremely slowly, and the back of his hand touched the shaker. He spread his feet, slightly squatted, and spread his right hand on his side. Instantly, his entire spirit, chi and spirit merged into one. Swoosh! The back of Ji Dong's left hand touched the shaker, and the shaker flew up horizontally. He quickly turned his body and lifted the bottom of the shaker with his right hand. Then, the shaker started spinning in the air at high speed. The 9 colored liquids in the crystal shaker began surging intensely. Ji Dong's hands fluttered in the air like butterflies, and the shaker seemed to have come to life. All kinds of shapes appeared in the air. Sometimes it turned into a sun-like disk, sometimes it turned into a faintly discernible starlight, and sometimes it turned into a moon-like glow. Ji Dong's hands were like phantoms, and he often swung the shaker in a way that violated the rules of human bodies. At this moment, the 3 of them felt that he was like an endless night sky, a vast universe. The sun, the moon, and the stars were shining ceaselessly, and sometimes they even turned into dazzling lights like shooting stars. Ji Dong was no longer standing behind the table. His body moved along with the shaker, and he perfectly displayed the limits of his mixing skills in this spacious room. Zhu Rong and Zhu Yan were both shocked. They had never seen such complicated and strange mixing skills. Ji Dong's hands moved so fast that they couldn't even keep up with it. The sun, the moon, and the stars were all visual illusions created by the shaker when it rotated at different angles and in different ways. However, during the whole process, Ji Dong didn't release any magic power. The most shocked one was Ji Dong's opponent, Fury, the Thunder Emperor. Ever since he became an excellent bartender, he had always believed that the strength of magic power was an important indicator of one's mixing skills. Although his thunder magic power didn't have as great an impact on mixing as his water magic power, it could also bring about many magical effects. It was the first time that he had seen someone like Ji Dong, who was able to display such a magical scene with only his hands. He deeply understood that even Du Sikong, the president of the Bartenders Guild, couldn't do what Ji Dong was doing right now. That was a pure technique without any fancy tricks or magic power. Every movement of Ji-dong had an indescribable inspiration for him. Every time Ji-dong's body changed, Fury couldn't help but be amazed. Although he still didn't think that he would lose, he no longer looked down on Ji-dong. On the contrary, he had already recognized this little brother of his from the bottom of his heart. The technique that Ji-dong was using now was the highest technique that he had used in the bartending world in his previous life. It was also the technique that he had spent nearly 10 years experimenting with. It was called nirvana. At this moment, his eyes were flashing with deep emotions. His entire body was moving subconsciously, but in his heart, the beautiful face of the flaming bar kept flashing. A bartender filled with strong emotions was the best bartender. Only then could he give the wine he made a soul. Suddenly, the sun, the moon, and the stars shone brightly. Ji-dong's entire body was even hidden under the dazzling light. This time, no one could see his movements clearly. In the next moment, the sun, the moon, and the stars shone brightly, and Ji-dong reappeared. He raised his right hand, and the flask stood vertically on his index finger, spinning violently. "Please look," Ji-dong shouted in a low voice. He raised his left hand, and the yin-yang vortex spun on its own, completely transforming his magic into the third fire attribute. A fiery red flame rose from his left hand, shining on the back of the flask. The Zhu Rong brothers and Fury, the Thunder Emperor, had profound cultivation bases and extraordinary eyesight. At this moment, the three of them almost jumped up at the same time. Fury even exclaimed in shock, "This is impossible." Under the reflection of the red flame, they could clearly see that in the rapidly spinning wine in the crystal flask, there seemed to be a woman in a fluttering dress dancing. As the wine swirled, it seemed to be an extension of her 9-colored dress. Her movements were gentle and soothing, as if she was floating in a cloud of smoke. Although they couldn't see her face clearly, the touching feeling was enough to intoxicate them. That was a human figure completely formed by the wine. Ji-dong slightly adjusted the direction of his body. Under the illumination of the flame, the scene in the flask was reflected on the wall. The magnified woman suddenly appeared on the wall, dancing in an extremely realistic manner. It seemed to be telling Fury and the other two that their eyes weren't playing tricks on them, and that all of this was real. If it was said that Fury, the Thunder Emperor, thought that he could defeat Ji-dong with the miraculous scene of the lightning dragon playing with a pearl and the fine wine that was soaked in lightning, then at this moment, he had nothing to say. Even if he didn't taste it, he didn't think that he had even the slightest chance of winning. Zhu Rong took a deep breath and said slowly, "Miraculous, miraculous." Ji-dong turned his wrist, and the flask suddenly rose into the air. The dancing woman in the flask seemed to have floated up into the air and disappeared, as if she had ascended into the heavens. Within the sparkling light, the flask was placed on the table by Ji-dong. Through the transparent crystal, one could see that the 9 different colors of wine were clearly layered in the flask, without mixing. Taking back the flame in his left palm, Zhurong and the other two finally saw that Ji-dong's body was already covered in steam, as if he had just been fished out of the water. His clothes were all soaked. It was not hard to imagine how much energy he had consumed to perform the skill of mixing wine. Fury looked at Ji-dong and said, "Little brother, I just want to know the skill you used just now, and what is the name of this glass of wine?" Ji-dong took a few deep breaths, and his chest gradually calmed down. He smiled and said, "The skill I used just now is called nirvana. This glass of wine is also the best I can do. It is called, the 9 Heaven Fairy Descends to the Mortal World. Today I was lucky and succeeded. Even I can't do it every time." Fury gave Hyoheim a big thumbs up and said, "Little brother, I am convinced. From now on, I will never mention mixing wine in front of you again. What happened in the branch of the Central Plains city is over. In terms of mixing wine, even the leader of the branch of the Central Plains city is not your opponent. You deserve to be called the God of Wine." Our branch of the Central Plains city was not defeated by you. Even if you were in the headquarters of the North Water Empire, you would still have the power to challenge them. Ji-dong laughed and said, Brother, now I just want to taste your lightning dragon playing with pearls. These are just small tricks of mine. Your lightning magic is the real strength. Fury waved his hand and sighed, Little brother, you don't have to flatter me. I have always thought that I was right. But now I realize that although I can use my magic to mix wine, I have neglected the most essential part of mixing wine. In terms of the basic skills of mixing wine, there is a huge difference between you and me. In the future, I will have to learn more from you. Today, I have lost the bet. Any good wine can only bloom in your hand. Not to mention my stock, as long as I can find any wine in the continent, I will find a way to get it for you. Zhu Lao had already come to Ji-dong's side. He scratched his messy red hair and said in a serious tone, I haven't judged yet and you are admitting defeat? How will you know if the wine is good if you don't drink it? As he said this, he couldn't wait to grab the shaker in front of Ji-dong and unscrew the lid. Give it to me. A deep voice sounded behind Zhu Lao. Zhu Lao smiled bitterly. Can you not be like this, boss? You can't bully people like this. Zhu Rong snorted and said, I am bullying you. Ji-dong said it well. If you have the ability, you can also bully me. You. Zhu Lao was furious and turned to look at Zhu Rong. But when he saw Zhu Rong's deep gaze, he softened and helplessly handed the shaker back to Zhu Rong. He said pitifully, Boss, leave some for me. Ji-dong and Fury glanced at each other and couldn't help but smile. In front of Zhu Rong, Zhu Lao, who was nearly 100 years old, was like a child who had been wronged. Fury took 6 highball glasses and put them on the table. He also took out his shaker and poured 3 glasses of wine. Zhu Rong handed the shaker back to him and poured 3 glasses of wine. The wine that Fury made with the lightning dragon playing with pearls technique was bluish-purple, just like his lightning. The top part was blue, and the bottom part was purple. Faintly, one could even see a trace of lightning swimming in the wine. It was magical. After Ji-dong's glass of wine was poured out, the 9 colors were still separated in an orderly manner. Fury handed a glass of wine that he made to Ji-dong and said, I named it Thunder God Descends. Little brother, try it. Ji-dong nodded as he stared at the purplish-blue liquid. A longing that he hadn't felt for a long time arose in his heart. He only needed to take a few glances and a sniff to know what a cocktail tasted like. Chapter 57. However, out of the 3 cups of Thunder God Descend, only Ji-dong had tasted 1 cup. Both Fury and the Zhu Rong brothers had chosen the 9 heaven fairies descend from the heavens. Ji-dong took a sip of the bluish-purple liquid. Suddenly, a numbness spread from the tip of his tongue to the base of his tongue, and then to every part of his body. The explosive stimulation made all the pores on his body open. In the next second, the rich fragrance of the wine was sent to every corner of his body by the magic of the lightning. When he breathed, it was as if the fragrance of the wine was coming out of his 7 orifices. Ji-dong couldn't help but praise, good wine. It was Ji-dong's first time tasting this wine that was mixed with magic power. With every sip, he felt as if his whole body was washed by the aroma of the wine. The rich aroma filled all his senses. It was an unparalleled enjoyment. The advent of the Thunder God was well-deserved. For Ji-dong, the most important thing was the existence of this bartending technique. If he integrated the ultimate dual fire into the bartending, what kind of taste would it produce? It had been a long time since Ji-dong had the urge to study bartending. He was even looking forward to it. While Ji-dong was praising the unique taste of the Thunder God, on the other side, Fury and Zhu Rong brothers were silently counting something. Every time they took a sip of the wine, they would murmur something. Soon, the 3 of them finished their cup. Zhu Lao was the first to speak, 57 flavors. Oh my God, 1 cup of wine actually has 57 flavors. Zhu Rong frowned, shook his head and said, No, I counted 64. You missed it. Fury said, Teacher, you seem to have missed it too. I've carefully analyzed it, and there should be a total of 72 flavors. It's hard to imagine mixing 9 different wines together. Not only did it not mix up the flavors, but it also brought out the best of each flavor. It could even combine with each other to form an even more unique flavor. This is truly the king of cocktails. Junior, am I right? Ji Dong smiled and shook his head. 9 by 9, 81. It should be 81 flavors. Senior brother, you've counted too little. Zhu's second brother patted Zhu Rong's shoulder and said, Big brother, I think the 2 best things you've done in your life are to take in 2 good disciples. We'll have good food in the future, haha. Zhu Rong impatiently slapped his hand away and said, It's not us, it's me. Go back and forge your magic weapon. Second brother Zhu said with a flattering expression, Boss, we are brothers. Isn't what's yours mine? Zhu Rong snorted and said, Don't give me that. You've taken many good things from me, haven't you? You want to fight with me for your disciple? Zhu Rong, do you have any humanity? I took a lot of things from you, but did you take less from me? Zhu Rong said angrily. Fury chuckled and said, Uncle, teacher was just joking with you. Don't take it seriously. It's our duty to mix drinks for you too. Second brother Zhu was obviously still afraid of Zhu Rong. He didn't insist when there was a way out. He snorted and walked to Ji Dong with a big smile. He searched his body and took out 2 things, handing them to Ji Dong and said, Brother, I've done what I promised you. Take a look. Ji Dong subconsciously took it. It was a pair of gloves, emitting a dark golden luster. It was very light in his hand, and he didn't know what material it was made of. Turning it over, he was surprised to see that the 2 upper-grade crystal crowns that Zhu Lauer had shown him were embedded in the palms of the glove. Moreover, there was no trace of them being connected, as if they were made by nature. Seeing this pair of gloves, Fury couldn't help but stare blankly. He said, Uncle, you're being biased. Zhu Rong snorted and said, Well, second brother, you've even taken out your trump card. You're really willing to give it to me. Second brother Zhu snappily said, Don't I have a name? Don't call me second brother, it sounds awful. I'm not like some people who are stingy and stingy. As the big brother, of course, I have to give the best things to my brother. Ji Dong, let me tell you, this pair of gloves is made of black gold silk mixed with jade snow spider emperor silk, red phoenix silkworm silk, and 3rd crystal crown powder. It has the property of being immune to the 5 elements and is extremely tough. When you wear it, when you release your magic power, because the gloves are immune to the 5 elements, the magic power will automatically gather in the 7th crystal crown. Not only can it reduce the consumption of magic power when you release magic skills, it can also increase the power of your magic skills. When you practice, you can also absorb magic power through them and increase the effect of magic power condensation. This time, I used the best materials. This pair of gloves can increase the effect of these aspects by up to 30%. It's not wrong to say that this is your brother's trump card. Hearing second brother Zhu's words, Fury's eyes were wide open. Even Zhu Rong's expression revealed a bit of surprise. Ji Dong looked at the gloves and said, Brother, this is too precious, I can't take it. Second brother Zhu laughed and said, Don't be polite with me, I already said that I would give it to you. I won't take back what I've given away. Moreover, you know that I'm doing this to make better use of you. The faster your cultivation increases, the more beneficial it is for me, right? Quickly put it on, it's yours from now on. Apart from you, no one else can use this pair of gloves with the characteristics of yin and yang fire at the same time. Under second brother Zhu's urging, Ji Dong finally put on the gloves. The gloves were extremely flexible and light. The 2 crystal crowns didn't affect Ji Dong's clenching of his fists, nor did it affect the flexibility of his fingers. The gloves extended all the way to his wrist. Because the crystal crowns were at the center of his palm, as long as Ji Dong didn't turn his palm over, it didn't look conspicuous at all. Wearing them, Ji Dong could clearly feel two streams of heat flowing into his body from the two sovereign marks on his palm, fusing with the origin yin-yang crown. Even if he didn't deliberately activate his mana, the fire elements in the outside world would slowly flow into his body through the two crystal crowns, accelerating the origin yin-yang crown's rotation. There was no doubt that wearing them would greatly benefit his future cultivation. This magic weapon was definitely worthy of the word top quality. Zhu Rong Hyoheim said, although Zhu Yen looks crazy sometimes, the things he forges will never be wrong. Among all the existing magic weapon forgers on the continent, he can be counted as one of the top. This magic weapon is tailor-made for you, just take it. Second brother Zhu chuckled and said, Brother, this pair of gloves doesn't have a name yet. You are their owner, so you should give them a name. Ji Dong thought of the scorching sun and dark moon marks on his palm and said without hesitation, the third fire and the fourth fire, just like the brilliance of the sun and the moon. Let's call them the sun and moonshine. The sun and moonshine? Second brother Zhu murmured and said, Good, this name is good. The brilliance of the fire, the brilliance of the sun and the moon, the brilliance of the twin flames, it's decided. Let's call them the sun and moonshine. I believe that wearing them on your hand, they will definitely shine as brilliant as the sun and the moon. Zhu Rong said, Ji Dong, didn't you say you wanted to go out for a walk? Go. Fury said, Little brother, where are you going? I'm familiar with the Central Plains city, so I'll accompany you. We brothers can also get to know each other better. Ji Dong said, I originally wanted to go out for a walk and buy some side wines. Fury laughed and said, Buy what? You've already won just now. You can take as many wines as you want. If you need anything in the future, just tell me. The biggest advantage of the Bartenders Guild is that the wines are cheap. I'll take care of all of them. Let's go, I'll bring you around the city. Familiarize yourself with the environment. After bidding farewell to Zhu Rong and second brother Zhu, Fury brought Ji Dong out of the room. Ji Dong was still very interested in this senior brother of his. The two of them wanted to discuss their experiences in bartending. As for cultivation, Ji Dong didn't think too much about it. If he had any questions, he could just ask Zhu Rong. Moreover, behind him, there was the queen of the flaming bar in the underground world. On the third floor of the Yin-Yang Hall, there were at least 20 people gathered here. The leaders were Shui Ruhan and Long Tian. Long Tian said, I hope we can make it in time. The Thunder Emperor's mood is obviously not right today, as if he's been provoked by something. With his position in the academy, even if he really did something to Ji Dong, I'm afraid the board of directors won't punish him too much. Shui Ruhan said, We've already informed Elder Zhu immediately, so we should be able to make it in time. We can only pray for Ji Dong. As long as Elder Zhu has a good impression of us, I'll be satisfied. After we break through to the sixth crown, we can ask him for help. Long Tian, what's wrong? As Shui Ruhan spoke, she suddenly realized that Long Tian's eyes were a little dazed. It was as if he had seen something extremely unbelievable. His lips twitched a little as he said, You look. Shui Ruhan looked in the direction of Long Tian's finger. Instantly, her eyes were also dazed. It wasn't just them. The disciples of the Yin-Yang Hall who were waiting to see the results were all staring at the stairs in a daze. Their eyes were filled with intense shock. Two people, one tall and one short, slowly walked up the stairs from the third to the fourth floor. The tall one was Thunder Emperor Fury, and the short one was naturally Ji Dong. The reason why the disciples of the Yin-Yang Hall were so shocked was because Thunder Emperor Fury's right hand was wrapped around Ji Dong's shoulder, and he was smiling as he said something to him. Not to mention the younger disciples of the Yin-Yang Hall, even the veteran experts of the Yin-Yang Hall like Shui Ruhan and Long Tian had never seen so many smiles on Thunder Emperor Fury's face. The ferocious, unyielding, and cold Thunder Emperor also had such a gentle side. How could they not be taken aback? Fury and Ji Dong walked up to the third floor together. Feeling the attention of so many people, Fury's expression turned cold. His gaze swept across the crowd, and the disciples of the Yin-Yang Hall all retreated. None of them dared to look him in the eye. "What are you looking at? I, Hyoheim, have lost the challenge I issued." After saying this, he and Ji Dong strode away. "What did Thunder Emperor say just now?" Shui Ruhen rubbed her ears and asked in disbelief. Long Tian smiled bitterly. "Thunder Emperor said that he lost." "Thunder Emperor lost to Ji Dong? How? How is that possible?" Long Tian sighed. "Looks like we've all been tricked. Have you forgotten? Thunder Emperor is also the disciple of Director Zhurong. Director Zhurong personally taught Ji Dong, so they are fellow disciples. From what I can see, everything Thunder Emperor did today was to build up support for his junior. In the future, tell your water faction members to be more careful. Don't easily provoke that little fellow Ji Dong. Thunder Emperor's anger is never reasonable." As for what the disciples of the Yin-Yang Hall were talking about, Ji Dong naturally didn't know. He and Fury walked out of the Yin-Yang Hall together. He hadn't been out for 10 days, and seeing the light of day again made him take a few deep breaths. With Fury's help, Ji Dong quickly found Kar and Bissou, who were in the Fire Faction's school building. The three brothers had all been admitted into the Heavenly STEM Academy, so they naturally congratulated each other. In order not to shock them too much, Ji Dong didn't introduce them to Fury. Kar and Bissou had both decided to stay in the academy to continue their studies. After achieving 3 crowns, they would go to the entrance of the Holy and Evil Passage to guard it for 5 years. Just like Yang Bingtian had said, this was the glory that every magician yearned for. As for Kar and Bissou, Ji Dong didn't need to worry at all, because Yang Bingtian was now their homeroom teacher. He would teach these beginner students who hadn't achieved 2 crowns yet. Kar and Bissou both said that they would definitely cultivate hard and strive to achieve 2 crowns before the age of 16, so that they could go to the Yin-Yang Hall to find Ji Dong. Because they still had to go to class, the idea of going out together was naturally shattered. Ji Dong could only walk out of the Heavenly STEM Academy with Fury. "Junior brother, do you want to come to our guild? The guild also has a lot of good wine collection," Fury Hyoheim said. At this time, he already knew that Ji Dong was born with twin flames. The two of them had too many similarities. They both had mutated fire magic and were both good at bartending. Fury was 29 years old this year, twice as old as Ji Dong. He quite admired this junior brother of his. Ji Dong shook his head and laughed. "It's better not to go. I'm afraid that I'll be killed by the eyes of your guild if I go." Fury laughed and said, "Don't go if you don't want to. To be honest, when I heard that the guild was challenged, I wanted to tear you into pieces. I didn't ask too much before coming to you. If I knew that you were also teacher's disciple, although I would still find you to compare bartending skills, it definitely wouldn't be the way it is today. But this is also good. In the future, I'll see who dares to have any ideas about you in the Yin-Yang Hall." Ji Dong stopped and said seriously, "Senior brother, you obtained the recognition of the Academy and other Yin-Yang Hall disciples with your strength. I hope that I can be like you." Chapter 58. Fury looked at Ji Dong's determined gaze and patted him hard on the shoulder. "Good. You are indeed my junior brother. Your Yin-Yang fire has more potential than my lightning magic. I believe that you will definitely surpass me." At this moment, the two of them had just reached the entrance of the Heavenly Deity Academy. Ji Dong hesitated for a moment. He looked at the bustling crowd on the streets, then turned back to look at the quiet and majestic Heavenly Deity Academy. He said resolutely, "Senior, I don't want to go out anymore. I've decided. I won't step out of the academy until I achieve 2 championships." Fury stared at Ji Dong and said, "Junior, do you know? I seem to see my younger self in you. However, you are even more arrogant than I was back then. You rely on yourself and believe in yourself. Only by practicing hard can you achieve something. When your cultivation reaches 2 championships, I will ask the teacher to accompany you for the preliminary examination. Preliminary examination? Ji-dong looked at Fury doubtfully. Fury said, "The preliminary test is the first test that every Enyang school student has to face after entering the school. It's a test to assess the student's strength and determine the level of the tutor assigned to the student and how much effort is required to groom the student. You were admitted as an exception, so you didn't have to go through the preliminary test. However, when you reach the level of the double crown, you will definitely have to go through the preliminary test. It's also a chance to train your confidence and improve your combat ability. The preliminary test is usually accompanied by a tutor to ensure the student's safety. I'll go with you then." Ji-dong didn't ask much. It was meaningless to know all this before he achieved 2 championships. Actually, the reason why Ji-dong chose to immediately return to the academy to train was because he was stimulated by Fury's level 69 Sun Crown. Could he reach senior's level at the age of 29? Even if he reached senior's level, would he have the strength to protect the flaming bar? After all, even a powerful being like the giant frost dragon had to bow and scrape in front of the flames. Even if he could defeat the giant frost dragon one day, he would be old and frail by then. What right did he have to pursue the flames? With the urgency in his heart, Ji-dong developed an unparalleled desire for strength. With the support of this firm belief, what was loneliness and boredom? In the next 2 months, Ji-dong didn't step out of the Enyang Hall. He trained hard in his room every day. Zhu Rong would visit Ji-dong once every 10 days and fill the air with Bing fire elements to assist Ji-dong in his training. Due to the lesson from the first 10 days, Ji-dong used the red lotus in the flaming bar to absorb the Bing fire elements in his room and bring them to the Earth's core to avoid Zhu Rong's suspicion. Zhu Rong also never checked on Ji-dong's training. Such a hard-working disciple didn't need any coercion. The difference between 1 crown and 2 crowns could be seen from the title. For example, a Bing fire magician with 1 crown was called a Bing fire scholar, which still didn't break away from the word learning, while a Bing fire magician with 2 crowns was called a Bing fire master, which represented a real graduation. In the advanced magic academies of the 5 empires of the light 5 elements continent, 2 crowns was a common graduation condition. As long as one reached this level, one could officially graduate and become a real yin and yang magician. After registering in the Magic Guild, one could engage in various professions, whether it was politics, the army, or being recruited by nobles. They all had a pretty good future. Therefore, 2 crowns in the yin and yang magician's training, although it wasn't a dividing line, it was an important threshold for the future. A magic magician with 1 crown could use the standard skills at will. A magic magician with 2 crowns could practice the life skill. For a yin and yang magician's magical power, every time it increased by 1 crown, it was a qualitative leap. From 1 crown to 2 crowns, it was the change of one's own magical power from gaseous to liquid state. The more solid magical power, the more powerful the magician's offensive and defensive abilities would be. In the Earth's core lake, the rich gold and black dual-colored flame slowly rotated around Ji-dong's body. Above his head, the air around the black and white dual-colored yin and yang crown constantly distorted. On the crown ring, there were 5 golden and black dual-colored stars. On the left side, the black was on top, and the gold was overlapping. On the right side, it was just the opposite. Only the central star was black and gold, and on the front of the dual-colored yin and yang crown, the black and gold dual-colored flame brand was faintly pulsating. There was no doubt that the current Ji-dong had reached the strength of a level 20 crown. On Ji-dong's face, big drops of sweat rolled down, and his expression showed that he was in pain, but his body did not tremble at all. The magical power in his body was still constantly gushing out, joining the gold and black dual-colored flames around his body. The flaming bar stood quietly at the side. She was still wearing that red dress as she quietly looked at Ji-dong. Of course, she could easily help Ji Dong complete this second crown breakthrough, but she would never do that, because that would not benefit Ji Dong's future. When Ji Dong was condensing the yin and yang crown, she had to help. Otherwise, he would forever lose the possibility of becoming a yin and yang magician. However, since he had already formed the origin yin and yang crown and forged the yin-yang vortex, the flaming bar would not help him in terms of magical power. Mana had to be accumulated bit by bit with one's own strength in order to have the deepest understanding. Spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm would only hinder Ji Dong's future. Thus, when Ji Dong finally reached the level of a level 20 crown with the help of the twin radiance of sun and moon, and was about to break through to 2 crowns, the flaming bar did not help him in any way. The flaming bar had already done what she could. Even though Ji Dong felt like he was in a furnace and was enduring the intense pain caused by the intense circulation of magical power, he was actually not in any danger. That was because his body had been soaked in dragon blood and a drop of the flaming bar's blood. It was far more resilient than an ordinary person, and his limits were naturally much higher. It was not something that could be destroyed by the current magical power of 2 crowns. At the same time, the flaming bar also believed that Ji Dong's hard work was not in vain. With his own ability, breaking through to 2 crowns would not be too difficult. Ji Dong's palms were facing up, flat on his knees. One could see that the red and blue crystal crowns on the twin radiance of sun and moon were also emitting a dazzling radiance. Waves of strong elements were constantly pouring into Ji Dong's body through them. After using them for real, Ji Dong finally understood how great the benefits of the twin radiance of sun and moon were. With such a treasure, even if he did not cultivate, the 2 gloves would automatically absorb the magical power in the air and fuse it into his body, helping him slowly increase his magical power. And once he entered the state of cultivation, the speed at which he absorbed the magical power from the outside world was at least 30% faster than before. The feeling in this Earth's core lake was also more intense. The first time he used the twin radiance of sun and moon to cultivate in the Earth's core lake, Ji Dong's yin-yang vortex was almost disturbed by the sudden surge of magical power. It took him several days to adapt to the faster influx of magical power. At this time, in addition to the yin-yang crown on top of his head, the origin yin-yang crown in Ji Dong's chest was also shining brightly, but the yin-yang vortex had already spread out. At this time, the golden and black flames outside his body were actually released by the yin-yang vortex. After reaching the 20th level of the first crown, Ji Dong's chest was already filled with surging magical power. The origin yin-yang crown did not change in size, but the golden and black mixed mana vortex could no longer increase. The breakthrough was also at this moment. Breaking through from the first crown to the second crown was actually very simple in theory. First, he had to release all the magical power in his body. Then, in the process of condensing it again, he had to use his own control of the magical power to compress the gaseous magical power with the origin yin-yang crown, compressing it into drops of liquid magical power and fusing it into the origin yin-yang crown, completing the process of breaking through to the second crown. For ordinary magic masters, although this process was also difficult, it was not impossible. Therefore, from the first crown to the second crown, in terms of cultivation, was not an insurmountable hurdle. However, breaking through to the second crown was not so simple for Ji Dong. He did not simply convert the gaseous magical power into liquid. As a dual attribute fire magic master, he had to convert the 2 types of magical power at the same time and make the converted magical power revolve around the origin yin-yang crown to form a new yin-yang vortex. The process was more than 10 times more complicated. Normally, when he used the ultimate dual fire, Ji Dong could use the yin-yang vortex to adjust it as he wished. However, now that he was breaking through to the second crown, the yin-yang vortex had overflowed out of his body and could no longer convert. Moreover, He had to compress the two types of magical power at the same time to help his own magical power complete this qualitative change. Everything was difficult at the beginning. The most difficult part was the process of condensing the first drop of liquid magical power. At this moment, Jidong was at the most difficult moment. He released as much of the magical power in his body outside his body. In his chest, only the origin yin-yang crown shone brightly. Without the help of magical power, he could only rely on his own thoughts to activate it. He carefully absorbed some of the magical power outside his body into the origin yin-yang crown and began to compress it. The process of separating the magical power was very smooth. The Bingwu primordial yang sacred fire and Dingxi netherworld spiritual fire were condensed on the two sides of the origin yin-yang crown. However, as soon as the compression began, the huge pressure caused his origin yin-yang crown to explode with a huge energy wave. It was so stimulating that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. His heart was beating at least 3 times faster than usual, and the blood in his body was also circulating several times faster. His entire body was in extreme pain, but he could not stop. As the saying went, the first drum of energy, the second is weak, and the third is exhausted. If the first attempt was unsuccessful, the second would be even more difficult. The flaming bar is looking at me. Thinking of this, Jidong's willpower became incomparably firm. Even the pain seemed to lessen slightly. All of his willpower was focused on the origin yin-yang crown in his chest. He watched as the 2 drops of magical power started to shrink under the pressure of the origin yin-yang crown. The flaming bar stood beside Jidong and watched him quietly. Suddenly, the ultimate dual fire around Jidong stopped spinning and gathered behind him, forming 2 human figures made of flames. A familiar majestic and domineering aura instantly rose, causing the flaming bar's gaze to freeze. Flame Sovereign King, Dark Flame Devil King. The flaming bar frowned slightly and fell into deep thought. Generally speaking, after a human demon master broke through the difficult barrier of 3 crowns, releasing the yin-yang crown would trigger the illusion of their own totem and borrow the power of heaven and earth. But now, Jidong was only breaking through to the realm of 2 crowns. Why would the illusion of the 2 great sovereign kings appear? The existence of the 2 great sovereign kings was far more powerful than normal totems. Under normal circumstances, they would only appear after Jidong broke through to the 5 crowns. Even with the power of the flaming bar, he could not understand what was happening to Jidong. If Jidong saw the scene behind him now, he would be enlightened. The reason why the illusion of the 2 great sovereign kings appeared at this time was because the difficulty of breaking through to the 2 crowns was much higher than that of a normal demon master. It was equivalent to breaking through a heavenly moat that was extremely difficult to cross. The compression of the magic in his body produced an explosive effect that was several times stronger. The other, and also the most important, was that during Jidong's previous cultivation and battle, his own proud will and the proud will of the 2 great sovereign kings had imperceptibly completed a fusion. Although his strength was still weak, his spiritual will had been completely recognized by the memories of the 2 great sovereign kings. So at this crucial moment, the illusion of the 2 great sovereign kings would appear. With the appearance of the 2 great illusions, Jidong suddenly felt that the pain caused by the origin yin-yang crown had lessened. His will seemed to have increased several times. The ultimate dual fire magic in the origin yin-yang crown was finally compressed and formed, turning into 2 drops of liquid, 1 gold and 1 black. They spiraled lightly in the origin yin-yang crown. With the activation of his will, the 2 drops of liquid ultimate dual fire magic seeped out of the origin yin-yang crown and slowly circled around it. As they left, the origin yin-yang crown also began to automatically absorb the magic outside of Jidong's body. After the first compression process, everything else became much simpler, although the whole process was still very slow, as the gaseous ultimate dual fire outside his body was converted through the origin yin-yang crown. the liquid magic became more and more abundant. Ji-dong had already passed the most difficult moment of evolving from the first crown to the second crown. The flaming bar could clearly see that the 5 stars on the black and white yin-yang crown above Ji-dong's head had turned into 5 balls of starlight and condensed into a cluster of gold and black flames in the air. It floated to the left of the origin yin-yang crown and slowly imprinted itself on the second crown peak in the center. The qualitative leap had finally been completed at this moment. The biggest advantage of transforming the magic from a gaseous state to a liquid state was that it saved a lot of space. Around the origin yin-yang crown in Ji-dong's chest, there was only a small vortex of gold and black mixed together. The liquid energy was like a vortex quietly spiraling in water, supporting the origin yin-yang crown and illuminating the meridians in his body clearly. Chapter 59. Not only had this evolution allowed Ji-dong's mana to improve by leaps and bounds, but his physical attributes had also changed tremendously. His muscles, bones, meridians, and internal organs had all grown considerably under the nourishment of the ultimate dual fire's mana. Even his stature had grown a few notches taller. Nearing 15 years of age, he no longer looked like a child. He was now a vigorous youth, as if he had matured a lot overnight. When Ji-dong opened his eyes, there was a flash of gold and a flash of black light in his eyes. His entire temperament had become much more dignified. Although he was only close to 15 years old, he already looked like an adult. In particular, the arrogance between his brows made him feel like he was high above everyone else. Under the imperceptible influence of the ultimate dual fire, the temperament of the god of wine and the 2 great monarchs had gradually fused. Although Ji-dong didn't look handsome, he had a special kind of charisma. However, Ji-dong didn't feel anything at the moment. He only felt that his entire body was sticky and indescribably uncomfortable. There was even an unpleasant smell on his body, which made him frown. Raging Flame giggled and said, "Don't frown, this is a normal situation. Your magic power has increased and evolved to the level of the second crown, and along with it, the impurities in your body will be expelled once. In the future, every time you advance a crown, a similar situation will occur. Even I did not expect that you would be able to reach such a realm so quickly. Looks like I have to congratulate you." Ji-dong chuckled. "Everything I have was given to me by you. Thank you, Flaming Bar." He looked at the flaming bar with a much deeper gaze. In the depths of his eyes, there seemed to be 2 clusters of flames burning fiercely. However, he only saw calmness in the flaming bar's eyes. There was no emotion in that gentle smile. "If you really want to thank me, then make a better cocktail for me to drink. Ji-dong, your advancement this time will cause your strength to leap by leaps and bounds. The stronger the mana of the ultimate dual fire, the greater the gap between it and ordinary mana of the same level. With your current ultimate dual fire, you might not be inferior to the ordinary mana of the 3rd level. When you go back, you will also be able to experience the new magic skills that the 2 great monarchs have imprinted on you. However, you still have a long way to go, so you can't slack off. Give me your hand." Ji-dong raised his right hand and let the flaming bar hold it. Although there would be a piercing pain every time, as long as he felt the warmth of the flaming bar's fingertips, the pain was nothing. He had never asked the flaming bar why he was doing this. It could be said that it was a blind trust, or even an unreasonable infatuation. "Go back and wash your body. You'll feel the difference." Soon, the flaming bar withdrew her hand. These days, every time Ji-dong came to cultivate, she would hold Ji-dong's hand like this for a while. Ji-dong nodded. He didn't want the flaming bar to smell the scent on his body. Just as he was about to call the Red Lotus to leave, he suddenly thought of something and said to the flaming bar, "Flaming bar, I might not be able to bring you wine for a while. I heard from senior brother that after reaching the realm of the 2nd level, I have to take the preliminary test. I don't know where it is. Senior brother's strength is much stronger than mine. I'm afraid that he will find out if I come looking for you. The flaming bar nodded and said, Come back when you're absolutely safe. You owe me 100 years, I'll help you postpone the time. After saying this, even she couldn't help but burst into laughter. Looking at the flaming bar's dazzling smile that was like a blossoming red lotus, Ji-dong said goodbye in a daze. The red lotus swept away and quietly left. Even after washing up and changing into a set of clean clothes, Ji-dong's mind was still filled with the flaming bar's smile. He had finally reached the second level, and was one step closer to being able to protect the flaming bar. Flaming bar, don't worry. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how boring and lonely it is, I will do my best with all my heart. His strength had increased to the second level, and the changes were comprehensive. When he was bathing earlier, Ji-dong looked in the mirror and discovered that not only did he seem to have grown taller, but his temperament had also changed. His skin seemed to have become more lustrous, and there seemed to be a faint halo circulating under his healthy bronze skin. His perception of the fire attribute magical elements in the outside world had increased exponentially, and he no longer needed to concentrate on using his own magical power to attract it. As long as he willed it, the fire attribute would automatically draw close to him. It was time to go out. In the past 2 months, apart from eating, he had almost never left his room. He hadn't even left the Enyang Hall. Walking out of his room, Ji-dong also walked out of the Earth Major's teaching block. As soon as he walked out, he discovered that the Heavenly STEM Academy seemed to be a little different today. He could already see a large number of students gathered on the huge field in the distance, and he could even feel magical fluctuations coming from it from time to time. What's going on? With a bit of curiosity, Ji-dong arrived at the field. He saw that in the center of the field, students from all departments had gathered together, cheering and sighing could be heard one after another. Ji-dong's vision was very sharp, especially after his magical power had increased, and his sixth sense had also increased. He swept a few glances at the crowd and discovered Kar and Bisu's figures. Quickly squeezing to their side, Ji-dong grabbed their shoulders and said, What's going on? It's so lively. Kar and Bisu turned at the same time, and when they saw that it was Ji-dong, they were immediately pleasantly surprised. Kar said, Boss, you've come at the right time. Haha, you're also this year's new student. Our fire major has a chance to be proud and elated. Ji-dong was a bit puzzled and said, You have to tell me what's going on first. Bisu said, It's like this, today is the monthly exchange day. Our Heavenly STEM Academy will hold an exchange every month according to the Magic Major's attribute, only divided by the 5 elements. For example, our 4th fire and 3rd fire are considered the same major. The 5 elements of the teaching block will each send out 5 people from the beginner classes and 5 from the official student. Each major will send out their strongest student representative, and the final seat will be decided by the number of matches. This way, not only will it increase the interaction between the students of each major and increase their actual combat ability, but it will also encourage the students to work hard in their cultivation. The 2 major that won the monthly championship won't need to clean up for the next month, while the remaining 4 elements and 8 major will be responsible for cleaning up according to their ranking in the competition. The higher the ranking, the less cleaning time, and the last one will have to clean up for a whole 10 days. Boss, this isn't as simple as just cleaning up. If the 2-element representative of any of the 2 elements gets the last place, they will be waiting for bad luck for the next month. The teachers will train them as hard as they can, and they won't be able to raise their heads among the students. Ji-dong said, Then what about our fire dual element? Kar and Bisu looked at each other. Kar smiled bitterly and said, The situation isn't very optimistic. Last month, our luck was very bad. In the first round, we met the water dual element, which countered each other. In the end, it caused the 10 participating students to consume a lot of energy, and we even lost the first round. In the following matches, it was extremely disadvantageous for us, and we lost consecutively. We only got the last place. This month, we have been living in an abyss of suffering. This month, no matter what, we have to rise up. Jidong said, "What are the rules of the competition? Beginner students and official students compete together?" Carr said, "No, the rules are very simple. How to arrange the team formation is decided by the teachers of each element, and then there will be a single elimination round. For example, if our fire element is up against the water element, we will send one student to spar with the other student. The loser will be sent down, and another person will come up. Until one side students are all defeated, then there will be a round robin, and each element will have to face the other 4 elements separately. In the end, according to the number of rounds won, the top 2 magic elements will be decided. Both sides will send out 5 people to fight for the championship of the month." Bissot said excitedly, "This month, our luck is pretty good. We met the metal element first, and then the wood element. Although we lost to the water element, the earth element met the wood element in the first round, and they couldn't hold on in front of us. In the end, we will probably fight with the water element for the championship of the month, or at least second place." Carr glared at Bissot and said, "You really have no ambition. If you want to win, then win. With Boss participating, are you afraid of not getting a good ranking?" Jidong frowned and said, "I am a disciple of the Yin-Yang Hall. Can I participate in this competition?" Carr said, "It should be possible. Boss, do you remember that little girl in you? She is now representing the water element in the competition. That little girl is amazing. In just 2 months she has already reached the 12th level. Although her level isn't high, her water magic skill is very hard to defend against. I heard from Teacher Yang that as long as the magic power hasn't reached 3 crowns, even the disciples of the Yin-Yang Hall can participate in the competition." Bissot moved closer to Jidong's ear and whispered, "Boss, we found that in the Heavenly STEM Academy, the competition between the various elements is very fierce. Our fire element and water element are like fire and water. You must help us get back at them. With you participating, we will definitely win this month's championship." Jidong said, "But the contestants have already been decided. Can they still be changed?" Bissot said, "They can be changed in the finals. After all, the previous participants have gone through many battles and are very tired. Usually, in the finals, both sides will replace students who have not participated before. Boss, quickly come with us. Today, Teacher Yang will be in charge of the distribution of our members." Jidong was dragged to the inner circle by Carr and Bissot, just in time to see that the last battle had already ended. The representative of the fire element was someone familiar. It was that little girl, Zhu Gui. She represented the fire element and was the last to fight. She had defeated the last earth element student who had lasted for 2 battles. However, her face was also covered in sweat. Jidong suddenly saw that the yin-yang crown on Zhu Gui's head had already reached the level of 1 crown 19 rank. She was only 1 step away from 2 crowns. Zhu Gui was about the same age as them. Based on this situation, it wouldn't be long before she would also be able to enter the Yin-Yang Hall. "Teacher Yang, look who's here." Bissot couldn't wait and dragged Jidong to Yang Bingtian's side. At this moment, Yang Bingtian was frowning as he thought about the arrangement of the members for the finals. The monthly sparring competition actually had a lot of luck. If they met an opponent whose element countered theirs at the beginning of the competition, it would be very difficult to get a good result. Last month, the fire element was unlucky and ended up at the bottom. This month, their luck was pretty good and they entered the finals. However, they had to face the water element, which countered theirs. Yang Bingtian really didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. However, he was quite unwilling. It wasn't easy for the powerful earth element to enter the finals. How could he not have such a good opportunity to become the champion? "Jidong? You're out?" Yang Bingtian was pleasantly surprised to see Jidong. He heard from Zhu Rong that Ji Dong was in closed-door training. Otherwise, he would have asked Ji Dong to represent the fire element during the sparring competition last month. Ji Dong nodded and said, "President Yang, let me represent the fire element in the finals." Yang Bingtian laughed and said, "You've come at the right time. The heavens are really fulfilling our wishes. It looks like our fire element will definitely be the champion this month. I heard from my teacher that before your eldest senior brother won 3 championships, our fire element had never lost in the sparring competition. Now you're going to take over his position." Ji Dong smiled lightly and said, "You don't need to arrange for anyone else. I think that I alone will be enough." Ji Dong's voice wasn't loud, but many of the surrounding fire element students still heard it. Although Ji Dong had already joined the Yin-Yang Hall, he rarely showed his face in public. There were very few people who had seen him before, so they immediately raised their eyebrows. Yang Bingtian was also stunned for a moment. Although he knew that Ji Dong was a fire element student, he had only condensed the Yin-Yang crown not too long ago. The final competition on the sparring competition required both sides to send at least 2 primary students. He had hoped that Ji Dong would be able to win at least one match and help the fire element gain an advantage. He hadn't expected that Ji Dong would say such confident and even arrogant words. However, Yang Bingtian also noticed that Ji Dong seemed to be a little different from before. The arrogance between his brows had been greatly restrained, but the light in his eyes had deepened. A confidence that came from his bones made it hard for others to doubt his words. Yang Bingtian nodded and said, "All right, then you'll be the first to go, but don't force yourself." At this time, Zhu Gue had already returned. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and his face was a little pale. It was obvious that he had used too much mana. The fire element didn't have any advantage over the earth element. If it wasn't for the fact that the earth element had used too much mana, the fire element would have had a hard time. It had to be known that the earth element had been the champion last month. Chapter 60. Ji Dong, long time no see. You're going to represent the fire element? Zhu Gue was a little surprised to see Ji Dong. Although she knew that Ji Dong had also been admitted to the Heavenly STEM Academy and had even entered the Yin-Yang Hall, this was her first time meeting him there. Ji Dong nodded at her and said, "You're improving very quickly. I hope to see you in the Yin-Yang Hall soon." Zhu Gue snorted and said with some dissatisfaction, "Although you entered the Yin-Yang Hall earlier than me because of your dual fire element, I will definitely surpass you in ranking. Don't embarrass the fire element later." Ji Dong smiled indifferently. They hadn't seen each other for more than a year, but Zhu Gue was still as overbearing as before. Unfortunately, he was no longer the same person as before. The facts will prove everything. This daily battle of the 5 elements didn't have many strict rules, and there weren't many strict referees either. After all, it was just a daily competition to encourage students to work hard and increase their combat ability. Therefore, after the fire and water element teams had selected their candidates for the finals, the competition immediately began in the previous arena. Ji Dong walked out from the fire element team and didn't attract much attention. Very few people had seen him before, and even fewer knew that he was a part of the Yin-Yang Hall. Moreover, he didn't look very old. In the eyes of the spectating students, he was just a student representing the beginner class. In the competition, it was normal for the teachers of the various elements to send out some new students. This way, more students could participate in actual combat. During the competition, both sides would usually send out the weaker beginner students to test each other out. The students had long since gotten used to it. The water element team sent out a youth who looked about the same age as Ji Dong. He wore a black school uniform, and the Empress totem on his chest showed that he was from the Ren element. "Ren element, Yen Ruhan. Please advise me." Ji Dong slightly returned the greeting. His self-introduction was even simpler, "Fire element Ji Dong." Yen Ruhan looked a little nervous. After both sides had registered, the teacher in charge of the competition gave the order. Yen Ruhan immediately released his ninth element magic. A layer of black light rushed out from his body and quickly condensed into a white crown above his head. Ji Dong glanced at him. A crown of 17 levels. Among the beginner students, it was considered good strength. However, from the process of him releasing his ninth element magic, he was still quite a distance away from Luo Qinfeng, who had participated in the freshman assessment. Yen Ruhan was still releasing his yang crown to condense magic, but Ji Dong had already made his move. He had been training hard for a long time, and with the existence of the yin-yang vortex, he was already much faster than the average magician. Moreover, there was a qualitative difference between the two of them. 2 champions against 1 champion, what more did he need to prepare? Putting away his yang crown, Ji Dong raised his hands at the same time. His left hand was red and his right was blue. The Bing and Ding flames instantly blossomed. The intense flames followed the yin-yang crown above his head and drew an arc in the air, instantly fusing in front of his chest. Both hands pushed out at the same time. Instantly, a red and blue fireball surged out. The teacher leading the water element team was a beautiful woman in her 40s. When she saw Ji Dong's hands, she immediately stood up from her seat, her eyes filled with shock. Yen Ruhan, who was fighting against Ji Dong, was also shocked by the 2-colored fireball that he had never seen before. Panicking, he quickly condensed his water element magic on his hands and punched out at the same time. At the same time, his fists slightly intersected, and the black light suddenly rippled like a layer of ripples. It was obviously a kind of benchmark technique. Boom! The Bing and Ding fireball suddenly burst out, and the tyrannical explosive power mixed with the characteristics of the 2 fire elements instantly blew up the black light emitted by Yen Ruhan, causing his whole body to fly out of the competition arena. This was already Ji Dong being merciful. He only used 50% of his magic in the Bing and Ding fireball. Both of his hands retracted to his sides, and the black and white yin-yang crown on his head didn't disappear. Ji Dong acted as if he had just done an extremely ordinary thing. He lightly said, "Next." The entire process from start to finish had happened too quickly. Both sides had only made contact once. To be more precise, it was only the contact of magic, and the outcome had already been decided. Not only was the water element team in an uproar, but even the fire element team was in an uproar. Zhu Gui blankly stared at the strange 2-colored yin-yang crown on top of Ji Dong's head, and his face seemed to have become even paler. Yang Bingtian couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice, "Good boy, it's only been a few days, and he's already won 2 championships. This kind of cultivation speed is too shocking. Could it be that this is unique to the yin and yang elements?" Car and Bissot cheered at the same time. Seeing that Ji Dong's strength had become even stronger, their hearts were filled with excitement. The female teacher leading the water element team had a somewhat serious expression on her face. At this moment, a girl dressed in purple walked to her side and said a few words in her ear. The female teacher's expression slightly calmed down. She nodded and waved at the girl. The girl dressed in purple turned around and walked into the field. Although Ji Dong could see the perfect flaming bar every day, when this girl dressed in purple appeared in front of him, he couldn't help but feel his eyes light up. She looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. She had an oval face and a slender figure. Her oval face was embedded with a pair of large purple eyes, but she had a head of long silver hair that draped behind her head. From her faint smile, one could clearly see the shallow dimples on each of her cheek. She was as sweet as wine, and just looking at her made one feel intoxicated. She wasn't old, but she already had the appearance of a flower and the moon. Especially the feeling of a bud that was about to bloom, it made her even more youthful. Stopping 10 meters away from Ji Dong, Hyoheim bowed slightly and said, "Yin Yang Hall's special number 51, Water Element Lawn Bao. Please advise me." Hearing the words Yin Yang Hall, Ji Dong couldn't help but be slightly stunned. He couldn't help but ask, "Your special number 51? Lon Bauer smiled slightly, and her dimples made her even more charming. She said, "I know your special number 49. Originally, your token should have been mine. I'm a student who qualified to enter the Yin Yang Hall from the beginner class. Today's battle will be my challenge to senior brother." As Hyoheim spoke, the water element students were already shouting. Their voices were strangely uniform, "Victory to Queen Gui Shui." It was obvious that Lon Bauer was very popular among the water element students. Ji Dong knew that age didn't matter in the Yin Yang Hall. Those who were ranked higher would be addressed as senior brother or senior sister. He really didn't expect that his first challenge after entering the Yin Yang Hall would be under such circumstances. Nodding, Ji Dong said, "All right. If I lose, I'll exchange tokens with you." Yin Yang Hall's special number 49, Fire Element Ji Dong. "Please advise me." Lon Bauer still had a smile on her face. A faint purple light surrounded her body and floated up like a cloud of smoke. A black Yin crown with 2 crowns and 2 stars had already appeared above her head. A 24th level water master was indeed worthy of being a part of the Yin Yang Hall. Ji Dong's heart trembled. He knew that even though he had broken through to the 2nd crown, he was still ranked last in the Yin Yang Hall. In terms of magic power, perhaps only Lung Yu was lower than him. Fire Element versus Water Element. The second match of the finals begin. Following the referee's announcement, Ji Dong's first challenge from the Yin Yang Hall began. Lon Bauer waved her right hand lightly, and the Gui water demonic power had already turned into a purple ribbon of light that floated up, and the air became sweet and moist. Gui water was pure Yin water, and its nature was extremely weak. Although it had a long source, it was the quietest, and when it was activated, it was silent. The purple Gui water had just floated in the air when it had already bloomed like silk, drifting towards Ji Dong. The air in the arena was filled with this silent Yin energy that moisturized everything. As the saying goes, when an expert makes a move, there's nothing left. As soon as this Yin Yang Hall's special number 51 made her move, Ji Dong felt a completely different feeling from the previous battle. The pressure was overwhelming. Water subdued fire, and Gui water subdued Ding fire. In other words, Yin water subdued Yin fire. She was creating an aura to suppress him in terms of element. Element suppression? Alright, then I'll give you a direct hit. Ji Dong's expression didn't change. His body rushed forward in an instant, and his left foot stepped heavily on the ground. With the help of the rebound, his whole body shot out like an arrow, heading straight for Lon Bauer. The black and white Yin Yang crown instantly turned into a white Yang crown, and the scorching sun devour blasted out. As soon as the purple magic power in the air came into contact with the third fire on Ji Dong's body, a series of popping sounds erupted and turned into steam. Although water subdued fire, Yin water's restraining effect on Yang fire was relatively smaller. Ji Dong's scorching sun devour could be said to have been thoroughly tempered. Although his movements were fast, the mobilization of his magic power was not chaotic, especially the third fire magic power that had just been upgraded to 2 crowns of liquid state. It was full of explosive energy. Above his right fist, a 3-inch red sun fire bloomed. Once his fist hit, then the surging third fire magic contained in it would burst out in an instant. In the face of Ji Dong's thunderous attack, Lon Bauer was not in a hurry. Her hands waved at the same time, and 2 purple light ribbons floated up, facing the direction of Ji Dong very softly. Seeing that Ji Dong's right fist had already attacked, the 2 purple light ribbons floated up and directly wrapped around Ji Dong's right arm. The cold 10th water magic power suddenly turned into thousands of strands of erosion. Just for a moment, Ji Dong felt that his right arm was extremely cold, and the third fire magic power in it was rapidly eroded. Lon Bauer fully exerted the characteristics of the 10th water magic power. At the same time as the 2 purple light ribbons waved out, she also floated to the side. Humph! With a cold snort, Ji Dong's eyes suddenly condensed. His feet were on the ground, and his right arm shook violently like a dragon shaking its armor. In the loud bang, the red light suddenly exploded, and the surging third fire magic power instantly turned into a huge fireball, forcibly dispersing all the 10th water magic power that invaded his arm. The erosion of 10th water was good, and using softness to overcome hardness was also a clever way to restrain Ji Dong's attack. Unfortunately, Lan Bauer did not know that Ji Dong's body soaked in dragon blood had a strong resistance to any attribute. At the same time, she also underestimated the degree of compression of the scorching sun devour's fire element. The purple light ribbons turned into pieces of purple light and flew away. Lan Bauer's eyes also flashed a touch of surprise. In terms of magic power, she was clearly above Ji Dong, but under the explosive power of the scorching sun devour, her skill, which belonged to the category of hit skills, was broken. Of course, she did not know that with Ji Dong's magic power reaching 2 crowns, this skill belonging to the Flame Monarch had also been improved, and its power was not the same as before. Lan Bauer's reaction was extremely fast. She quickly took a step back and clasped her hands in front of her chest. The 2 crowns and 2 stars on top of her head instantly shone with purple light. The intense light spread out and enveloped her entire body. Following that, Lan Bauer took another step back and actually retreated from the purple light. In front of her, a purple light figure that looked exactly the same as her was separated. Yang Bingtian, who was watching the battle, could not help but be surprised. Advanced 10th water hit skill, 10th water image? After releasing this magic skill, Lan Bauer suddenly seemed to be extremely tired. With her current magic power, using this hit skill was already close to the limit of her magic power. Facing Ji Dong, although she looked calm and composed, in reality, the invisible domineering aura emitted from Ji Dong's body also gave her a lot of pressure. Level 24 against level 21, she did not feel the slightest advantage, so she had to use her strongest skill. The purple light figure was separated, and suddenly floated towards Ji Dong like a purple fairy. The surging 10th water magic suddenly bloomed, and the cold in the air increased exponentially. In the face of the attribute restriction, Ji Dong did not retreat at all. Attack was the best defense. This was the principle that he had always adhered to. His left foot suddenly stepped forward, and it was still the scorching sun devour. With an indomitable momentum, he blasted out a punch. The 10th water image raised both hands and met Ji Dong's attack. Red and purple, fire and water, the 2 extreme attributes of magic exploded in the air in an instant. The moment the magic of the 2 sides collided, the strong cold suddenly rushed into Ji Dong's body, as if it was directly integrated into Ji Dong's blood. However, the 10th water image also dimmed a little under the surging third fire of the scorching sun devour. It opened its arms and directly hugged towards Ji Dong's body. With this 10th water image that almost consumed all of Lan Bauer's magic, once Ji Dong was hugged by her, it would be very difficult to turn the tables without using the ultimate dual fire. However, would Ji Dong be defeated just like that? What ability would he use to break this advanced 10th water hit skill? Chapter 61. However, Ji Dong's movements did not stop. At the same time as the scorching sun devour erupted, his body did not retreat. Instead, he moved forward and collided with the Gui water image. There was another explosion, and the Gui water image that had not yet calmed down exploded in an instant. It was the Flame Monarch's scorching sunblast. The Gui water image's arms were about to close, but it was shaken by the impact of the scorching sunblast. Could not complete the hug. Purple light splashed, and the Gui water image trembled violently. But Ji Dong's right fist followed up, from bottom to top. The completely red right fist hooked up, and a surging pillar of fire appeared in the roar. A violent explosion that shocked the entire audience rose to the sky within a meter in front of Ji Dong. In just an instant, the moisture in the air was replaced by a crazy aura of the Gui fire element. This was the third skill of the Flame Monarch that Ji Dong had comprehended after advancing to 2 crowns, Scorching Sun Blast. Scorching Sun Blast was also the last attack of the Scorching Sun triple standard skill. The Scorching Sun Devour, Scorching Sun Blast, and Scorching Sun Blast were 3 skills superimposed. The explosion was also an advanced hit skill. What was different from the Gui water image was that this was the hit skill of the Flame Monarch, called Scorching Sun Triple Strike. Just the last attack of the Blazing Sun Triple Strike, Blazing Sun Blast, consumed even more mana than the third fireball. Although it wasn't a 2-element combination skill, the 3 third fireballs were connected, and the effect of each attack was stacked with the previous one. Moreover, during the stacking process there would also be a strange compression effect. This caused the explosive power of the final Blazing Sun Blast to increase exponentially. The pillar of fire rushed up to a height of 3 meters, and the Gui water image instantly disappeared without a trace. The air was full of surging Gui fire elements, and the crimson flames coiled around Ji Dong's body. It looked like the god of fire had descended to earth. The complete destruction of the Gui water image caused Lan Baoer's beautiful face to turn pale. She did not expect that the first time she used an advanced hit skill in actual combat would be like this. Even if Gui water did not have a strong restraining effect on Binghua, it was still water, and Binghua was still fire. What's more, Ji Dong's magic power was 4 ranks lower than hers. Even under such circumstances, he was still no match for Ji Dong. After completing the Scorching Sun Triple Strike, Ji Dong's expression did not change. It was as if he did not consume much magic. His hands formed an arc on both sides of his body, and the white sun crown on top of his head turned black and white again. 2 balls of fire, one red and one blue, condensed into a ball in front of his chest. The Gui fireball shot out and went straight for Lan Baoer's chest. The Scorching Sun Triple Strike was not only powerful. More importantly, it was formed by the combination of the 2 basic skills, Scorching Sun Devour and Scorching Sun Blast, and a hit skill, Scorching Sun Blast. During the connection process, it was the technique that superimposed and compressed them to produce a powerful explosion. This way, the consumption of magic was not as great as the Gui water image, which was an advanced hit skill that was directly released. Moreover, with the existence of the yin-yang vortex, Ji Dong's magic recovery and control were far superior to ordinary magicians. The Gui fireball had defeated an opponent the first time it appeared in the finals. Now, it was facing Lan Baoer, who had almost lost most of her magic. There was no suspense in the outcome of this match. Seeing the 2-colored fireball suddenly approaching, Lan Baoer could not help but turn pale. She subconsciously raised her hands and condensed the remaining Gui water magic. However, anyone could see that her resistance was futile. Yang Bingtian and the female water teacher shouted almost at the same time, "Have mercy!" At the same time they spoke, the Gui fireball strangely stopped a meter in front of Lan Baoer. The blazing and violent Gui fire and the dark and deep Gui fire coiled and expanded. Lan Baoer felt as if her heart was about to jump out of her chest. Ji Dong said calmly, "There's no need to continue, right?" Lan Baoer's delicate face revealed a bit of a daze, and she said, "I've lost." The Gui fireball did not explode. With a wave of Ji Dong's hands, it actually flew back and turned into a ball of red fire and a ball of blue fire in midair. They fused into Ji Dong's body through his hands. It was obvious that he did not want to waste any magic. Moreover, it was the first time that Yang Bingtian and the other teachers had seen such a powerful control, let alone the students present. Being able to release and retract magic at will, it was a powerful control. Yang Bingtian could not help but exclaim, "Good!" Ji Dong looked at the water teacher as if nothing had happened, and said the same simple words, "Next." As his strength increased to 2 crowns, He had a deeper understanding of his yin-yang vortex and divine yin-yang lock. Although these two abilities could not be used to attack or defend, they were the foundation of Ji Dong's strength. With the two superimposed, he could easily control his magic. Even though Ji Dong had a harder time trying to reach 2 crowns than normal magicians, he had also gained more benefit. The scene of him retracting the Gui Di fireball was an idea he had thought of on the spur of the moment. He did not expect it to actually work. The released magic was retracted, and the yin-yang vortex spun even faster. He could clearly feel the external fire element magic continuously flowing into his body, replenishing the magic he had expended. It should be known that this was under the condition that he did not use the dual radiance of Sun and Moon Glove. His magic was only at 2 crowns, but his strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed. The female water teacher walked out slowly. She looked at Ji Dong, then turned to Yang Bingtian and said, "We admit defeat for today's finals. See you next month." Ji Dong was stunned for a moment. That was it? But he quickly understood. Although Lan Bao was not the official student with the strongest magic among the 2 crowns, she was able to enter the yin-yang hall and use a top-notch skill. This was enough to prove her position in the water department. Even she had lost to Ji Dong. Who else in the water department could deal with Ji Dong's scorching sun triple strike? If Ji Dong was able to defeat 5 people by himself and completely defeat the water department, then the morale of the water department would be greatly affected. It was better to admit defeat. Ji Dong's existence meant that the water department had no chance of winning. Hearing the water department admit defeat, the fire dual element students cheered. From last month's last place to this month's champion, a month's worth of suffocation was finally released. Before Ji Dong could react, he was swarmed by a large number of fire students and thrown into the air. Lan Bao was still standing there without moving. She looked at Ji Dong, who had been thrown into the air, with a strange look in her eyes. "Bao, victory and defeat are common. Don't mind it too much." The female water teacher put her arm around her shoulder. Lan Bao nodded lightly. Number 51 was still number 51, and number 49 was still number 49. However, she didn't expect to lose so badly. She muttered to herself, "I heard that when Ji Dong joined the yin-yang school this year, his mana was only level 14. Zhu Rong was in his office dealing with some school affairs. There was a knock on the door. "Come in." Zhu Rong's calm voice always seemed to contain a slight trace of anger. Perhaps this was the characteristic of the 3rd fire element. The door opened and the tall Fury walked in. "Teacher, our fire element won the championship in today's Academy Exchange Day." Zhu Rong raised his head and looked at Fury. A rare smile appeared on his face. He said, "These little guys did well." Fury laughed and said, "Moreover, our fire element's opponent in the finals was the water element. I thought you would be very happy to hear this news, so I came as soon as I could." Zhu Rong's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. He said, "If that's the case, it's worth celebrating. Tell me, how did they win?" Fury said, "You won't be able to guess who turned the tide. In the finals, our fire element team only sent out 1 person, and they defeated the water element team, forcing them to admit defeat in the 3rd round. It could be said to be a complete victory. 1 person? Completely defeating the opponent in a situation where the elements are mutually exclusive. You were just like that back then, right? Don't tell me that our fire element has produced another genius? Moreover, it's not just any genius." Fury laughed and said, "Speaking of which, this genius is closely related to you." Zhu Rong seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly stood up from behind his desk, and a threatening aura flashed. He said, "Fury, don't tell me that the student representing our fire element is Ji Dong?" Fury laughed and said, "Other than that kid, who else could it be? Not only did he defeat his opponent in the 1st round, I heard that Ji Dong has already achieved 2 crowns. Teacher, it has only been 70 days since he joined the yin-yang hall." From the 14th to the 20th level, he broke through 2 crowns and entered the 21st level. This seems to have already created a record in the school. Even I, after condensing the lightning attribute Yin-Yang crown, used nearly a year to break through to 2 crowns, and another 2 years to achieve 3 crowns. Based on the current situation, I'm afraid that little junior brother will appear in the Holy Evil battlefield in 2 years. The minimum requirement for the Holy Evil battlefield is 3 crowns. Zhu Rong walked out from behind his desk and paced around the room. His eyes flickered and he said, "This kid, it's a little early to reveal his talent. It's not a good thing. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. How about this, Fury? Didn't you want to bring him to the preliminary test? Go and find him now. Don't let him have too much contact with the ordinary students outside. You guys will set off tomorrow morning." "Alright, I wonder if little junior brother can break another record in the preliminary test. I have high hopes for him," Fury said, "but teacher, before he goes to the preliminary test, shouldn't you teach him a few demonic skills first?" Zhu Rong shook his head and said, "No, now is not the time. It's not a bad thing for him to increase the difficulty of the test. Ji Dong is even more arrogant than you. It's good for him to suffer some setbacks." Bang bang. The door was knocked again, and a respectful voice came from outside. "Director Zhu, the dean has called for a board meeting." Zhu Rong frowned and said, "Got it, I'll go over now." The voices outside disappeared. Fury moved closer to Zhu Rong and whispered, "Teacher, is this board meeting for Ji Dong?" Zhu Rong shook his head and said, "It's hard to say. But no matter what, Ji Dong has already achieved 2 championships. I'd like to see what old Shui and old Ling have to say. This kid is really something. This time, I can hold my head high again." Fury said, "Oh yes, teacher, I heard that Martial Uncle has returned. About Ji Dong, shouldn't you inform Martial Uncle?" As he said that, a strange smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Zhu Rong glared at Fury and said, "Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and find your little junior brother. Is the matter between me and your martial uncle something that you should care about?" Alright, I'll go. "But teacher, if you're too firm, you'd better," Zhu Rong said angrily. "Are you itching for a beating? Hurry up and scram." As he said that, he prepared to hit Fury. Fury chuckled and ran away. He was very clear about Zhu Rong's temper. Seeing that Fury had left, Zhu Rong couldn't help but smile again. He said, "This brat, he even wants to meddle in my business. But what he said seems to be reasonable." When Fury brought Ji Dong back to the Yin-Yang Hall, Ji Dong was already a little dizzy. The excited fire element students had to torture him for a quarter of an hour before he could stand firmly on the ground. Seizing the opportunity when Fury came to find him, he quickly ran back to the Yin-Yang Hall. In his heart, he was wondering if he should still represent the fire element in the sparring competition in the future. Fury repeated Zhu Rong's words to Ji Dong. "Senior brother, it's all up to you. How will the preliminary test be conducted? From what you said, it doesn't seem to be held in the academy." Fury nodded and said, "Of course not in the academy. Pack your things and we'll set off tomorrow morning. You'll know when we reach the place. Don't ask too many questions for now." Okay. The next morning, after a night of training, Ji Dong said goodbye to the flaming bar and specially made a few cocktails for her. After that, he packed his luggage and took a few changes of clothes and left the room. He had made an appointment with Fury to meet at the entrance of the Earth Element Teaching Building this morning. Using his identity tablet, Ji Dong walked out of the Yin-Yang Hall. When he reached the entrance of the Earth Element Teaching Building, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. He saw an unexpected figure. A slim figure, purple clothes, silver hair, dimples on her cheeks. Wasn't it Lon Bauer, the disciple of the Gui water element who lost to him in the sparring competition yesterday? She was the special number 51 of the Yin-Yang Hall. "Hello, Ji Dong." Lon Bauer greeted Hyoheim in a natural and graceful manner. Ji Dong looked at her with a little confusion and said, "Why are you here?" Lan Bao smiled and said, "I just joined the Enyang Hall. Of course, I'm going to the preliminary test with you." Chapter 62. Lan Bao's appearance surprised Ji Dong, especially when he heard that Lan Bao was also going to the preliminary exam. He was even more shocked. Yesterday, his senior didn't say anything about her participating in today's preliminary exam. "You're going to the preliminary exam too?" Ji Dong frowned slightly. Lan Bao chuckled and said, "Why? Am I not welcome?" Ji Dong shook his head and said, "I just didn't expect it. However, we are from different departments. Is the content of the preliminary exam the same?" Lan Bao said, "It should be the same. I don't know what the preliminary exam is." At this moment, Fury's tall figure finally appeared. He said, "You are all here. Just in time. Let's go." Ji Dong gave Fury an inquiring look. Fury walked in front of the two and said, "This is Lan Bao from the Gui water system. You should have already met her yesterday. This time, she will participate in the preliminary exam with you. Lan Bao is also a rare talent in the school. Junior, you don't know that because you suddenly achieved 2 championships yesterday, the school even held a temporary board meeting." "Board meeting for me? Why? I only met the most basic requirements of a Enyang Hall disciple." Ji Dong looked at Fury with some doubt. Fury said, "Little junior brother, have you forgotten? How did you join the Enyang Hall back then? At that time, you and special number 50 Ling Yu challenged official student Luo Qingfeng together, but an accident occurred. You unintentionally completed the 3 elemental combination skill in Luo Qingfeng's body under the condition of mutual restriction, causing Luo Qingfeng to be seriously injured and almost die. It is because of this incident and your own Bing and Ding fire that you and Ling Yu made an exception to join the Enyang Hall. Now that you have achieved 2 championships so quickly, it has already attracted the attention of the school's higher-ups. At the same time, research will also be carried out on that 3 elemental combination skill, but during the research, it needs to be tested in practice. Originally, the plan was to pair you and Ling Yu up for the experiment after you and Ling Yu both reached level 20. However, your speed of improvement is too fast, and Ling Yu still has a long way to go before achieving 2 championship. Therefore, this experiment will be carried out by you and junior sister Lan Bao, who has also just joined the Enyang Hall." Ji Dong came to a sudden realization. "Does that mean that I'll have to test the 3 elemental combination skill with Lan Bao in this preliminary test?" Fury nodded and chuckled. "You have no idea. Yesterday's board meeting was a complete mess. But this time, I'm proud." He glanced at Lan Bao and didn't say anything else. However, his eyes were still filled with joy. At that moment, Lan Bao said, "Senior brother Fury, I'm honored to be able to participate in this preliminary test with Ji Dong under your supervision. You can call me Bao from now on." Fury smiled faintly and said, "Junior sister Bao, I heard that you are the number 1 beauty among the official water disciples. You are indeed worthy of your reputation." Lan Bao blushed slightly and said, "This is all nonsense from the nosy students." Fury laughed and said, "How could it be nonsense? You are only 15 years old. In a few years, you will definitely be a great beauty that can cause the downfall of a city. However, my junior brother is not bad either. I believe that his achievements in the future will be higher than mine." As he said that, he winked at Lan Bao. Lan Bao blushed even more. She said shyly, "Senior brother Fury, let's go." After saying that, she glanced at Ji Dong, turned around and ran out. Ji Dong said helplessly, "Senior brother Fury, I still have to participate in the preliminary test with her. If you say that, won't it make things awkward for us during the preliminary test?" Fury said in a low voice, "You don't know this, but teacher and the 2 directors of the water element have always been on bad terms. If you can get your hands on the number 1 beauty of the water element, Teacher will definitely be very proud. The two directors will be so angry that their noses will be crooked. Ji Dong was speechless for a while and said, Senior brother, we should go. Okay. Let's go. But junior brother, are you not tempted at all? Lan Bauer is really not bad. Not only is she beautiful, but she is also not arrogant. She is natural and unrestrained. She is the dream lover of 50% of the male students in our school. Ji Dong just shook his head and did not say anything else. He went straight outside. Lan Bauer was not bad, but he already had someone in his heart. There was not even a gap between them. After leaving the Heavenly STEM Academy, Fury's previous joking expression had disappeared. He had regained his usual imposing manner. Walking beside him, it was easy to feel a strong pressure. Ji Dong was a little better, but Lan Bauer had to put some distance between herself and Fury. Naturally, she stood on the other side of Ji Dong. Fury brought the two of them out of the city. The Central Plains city was really too big. By the time they walked out of the city, almost 2 hours had passed. After walking for a few miles on the official road, Fury brought the two of them to a forest beside the road and stopped to rest for a while. Senior brother, where are you bringing us? Ji Dong asked. Fury said, Now is the time to tell you the content of the preliminary test. For us Yin Yang Hall disciples, our time in the Yin Yang Hall is not as simple as learning. Apart from learning and training, it is more important to research more powerful magic skills and increase our combat ability. Therefore, there is no age limit for Yin Yang Hall disciples. If the Heavenly STEM Academy is a powerful warrior, then the Yin Yang Hall disciples are the warrior's spear and shield. Therefore, all Yin Yang Hall disciples are required to have extremely strong combat ability in addition to increasing their magic power. This way, they can display their greatest strength in any situation and protect themselves better. Your preliminary test is a process to test your combat ability. Ji Dong and Lan Bauer looked at each other. Even though Ji Dong's mental age was more than 30 years old, he couldn't help but feel his blood boil when he heard the word combat. Ever since he became the Yin and Yang magician, he had only had 2 real combat experiences. One was the life and death battle with Lu Jun, and the other was with the Greenwood Wolf King. The other battles were just sparring. Fury took out a map and spread it out in front of the two of them. He raised his finger and pointed at a spot on the map. Look, this is the Earth Spirit Mountain Range 500 miles east of the Central Plains city. Although the area isn't very vast and the mountains aren't very tall, it is a primeval forest with a large number of magical beasts living there. The Central Plains Empire has stationed a total of 4 legions around the Earth Spirit Mountain Range, accompanied by a small number of Yin and Yang magicians to prevent magical beasts from rushing out of the forest and harming the civilians. At the same time, this is also a large hunting ground. Anyone can go in and hunt magical beasts as long as they pay 100 gold coins. The fur and bones of magical beasts can be sold for money. Of course, most importantly, some magical beasts can produce crystal cores, which are very useful to us, the Yin and Yang magician. Your preliminary test will be held here. Lan Bauer asked, We're going to hunt magical beasts. You have a total of 1 month to hunt magical beasts. Within this month, you are not allowed to leave the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. You have to hunt magical beasts to obtain their cores. The most basic requirement for the preliminary test is that each of you must obtain at least 10 cores of the same elemental attribute. Just like magical beasts, there are also 10 grades of cores. Among the 10 cores of the corresponding elemental attribute, the quality must not be lower than a grade 3. At the same time, because the two of you will be taking the preliminary test together, you must also obtain a grade 4 core of any elemental attribute. Only after completing all these will you be considered to have passed the preliminary test. If you cannot complete it within a month, then no one will be able to save you and you will have to leave the Yin Yang school. Do you understand? Understood. Ji Dong and Lan Bauer nodded their heads in unison. Lan Bauer asked, Senior Brother Fury, Ji-dong has a dual attribute of yin and yang. Does he need to collect 10 crystal cores of the same attribute each? Even though I'm your senior, I won't be giving you any help during the initial test. I'll only accompany you this time to help you if you meet an extremely powerful enemy. Everything else will depend on yourself. After entering the Earth Spirit Mountain Range, I'll immediately separate from you. Actually, as long as you don't enter the core region of the Earth Spirit Mountain Range, you won't meet any magical beasts that are rank 4 and above. With your current strength, it shouldn't be a problem for you to protect yourselves. Of course, I have to remind you that in the wilderness, you can be attacked by magical beasts at any time. You must always be vigilant at all times. Later on, we'll resupply at the Earth Spirit City outside the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. You can buy whatever you need and enter the mountain range. The Academy will be responsible for all the expenses. Ji-dong said later. Senior Brother, shouldn't we rent a carriage for 500 miles? If we walk, I'm afraid we won't even be able to reach it in a day. Fury smiled calmly and said, What's 500 miles? I've also tried to travel thousands of miles in a day. 500 miles is just the work of 2 hours. The Thunder Emperor's domineering aura was released once again. His words were filled with strong confidence. Look! As he spoke, the purplish-blue light in Fury's eyes suddenly flashed, and an unparalleled surge of mana exploded in an instant. Vaguely, Ji-dong's consciousness felt that the sun in the sky dimmed for a moment, and a large patch of dark clouds quickly condensed above their heads. Although the bluish-purple electric light only appeared on the surface of Fury's skin, that layer of light was as breathtaking as a physical armor. Fury's special white corona appeared out of nowhere, and the powerful strength of a level 69 6 crowns was displayed once again. Seeing his corona, Lon Bauer could not help but exclaim. Although she had heard of the Thunder Emperor's name before, Fury had appeared rather gentle in front of Ji-dong today. Thus, Lon Bauer did not think too much of it. At this moment, when Fury truly released his magical power and displayed the powerful strength of a level 6 crowns, Lon Bauer finally remembered that the person standing in front of her was the top disciple of the Yin-Yang Hall, the Thunder Emperor that no one had dared to challenge in the past 10 years. Fury's eyes also turned a dazzling bluish-purple along with the appearance of the corona. Both of his hands made a strange gesture in the air. His right hand suddenly waved in the air, and with a crack, a deafening thunder sounded out of nowhere. The sudden clap of thunder caused countless birds and beasts in the forest to scatter. A miraculous scene appeared in front of Ji-dong and Lon Bauer. The thunder that sounded out of nowhere did not disappear with the roar. Instead, it froze in midair. The bluish-purple thunder seemed to be embedded in the air. Then, Fury spread his hands to the sides and said, "Come out, thunder!" The thunder that froze in mid-air suddenly expanded, and a huge and majestic body stepped out from within. It was an extremely huge creature. When it stepped out of the thunder, Ji-dong felt that it was a little familiar. It had a huge head and sharp teeth that were no different from swords. It looked extremely ferocious, and its entire body was covered in bluish-purple scales. There was a circle of huge cone-shaped bone spikes around its head. Each spike was more than 2 meters long. When its entire body stepped out of the thunder, it could be seen that its body was more than 20 meters long. Its entire body was covered in bluish-purple scales, and there were countless tiny snakes of electricity surging around it. A pair of huge wings that were even wider than its body was spread out. Its thick and powerful hind legs supported its huge body. Its 2 front claws were slightly extended, and there was a huge lightning symbol that was more than 3 meters long on its chest. As it looked around, its deep purple eyes flickered with electricity, and the air constantly emitted crackling sounds. As soon as this huge creature appeared, Ji-dong could not help but exclaim, "Dragon?" That's right. This huge creature was at least 60% similar to the frost dragon Wind Frost that he had seen before. There was not much difference in its overall form, but it was slightly smaller. However, the spikes around its head, as well as the bluish-purple spikes on its back and at the front of its wings, were also something that Wind Frost did not have. If the eyes of the Frost Wind Dragon were to be described as sinister, cunning, ruthless, and dignified, then the purplish-blue giant dragon in front of him would only reveal a domineering aura. Just like Fury's gaze, it was extremely domineering. From the looks of it, this bluish-purple dragon should not be of a higher level than Wind Frost. Its intelligence was also inferior. But no matter what, it was still a dragon, and a dragon that was released by Fury. What was going on? When this dragon had just walked out of the thunder, Lan Bauer had already hidden behind Ji Dong due to her timid nature as a girl. Her hands were tightly grabbing onto his clothes, and her body was also trembling slightly. Fury's eyes flashed with a scorching light. He laughed and said, "Little Junior, this is my good companion, Thunder. It is a mutant dragon, the purple Thunder Sky Dragon. Just like my magic, it is also a mutation. When I use my magic, it is the totem brand. This is what makes my magic different from others after its mutation. So, Thunder and I are indeed fated." Chapter 63. As if in response to Fury's words, the purple thunder brilliant heavenly dragon suddenly flapped its wings and roared at the sky. Its domineering aura was released, causing the ground to tremble, and all the plants around it to tremble. This was the power of a powerful magical beast. Fury's eyes were filled with sincerity and unparalleled passion. It was obvious that he had very deep feelings for this giant dragon. The purple thunder brilliant heavenly dragon lowered its head and stared at Fury. Its bluish-purple eyes were also filled with emotions, and it nodded at him. Ji Dong turned his head to look at Lan Bauer. After Fury's introduction, Lan Bauer was no longer that afraid. She was peeking out from his shoulder, and when she saw Ji Dong's somewhat playful gaze, she blushed and let go of his clothes. She even smoothed out the wrinkles and carefully walked out. "Senior brother, you have a dragon as a partner?" Ji Dong asked curiously. It would be a lie to say that he was not envious. Even if this giant dragon's level was not as high as Feng Shuang's and did not reach the strength of a top-notch mythological beast, it would at least not be lower than rank 7. With such a partner, it was no wonder that no one in the entire Yin Yang school dared to challenge Fury. Moreover, at this time, Ji Dong also saw that at the root of the purple thunder brilliant heavenly dragon's neck, there was a man-made, bluish-purple metal saddle bridge that could be used by people. This dragon's saddle extended all the way to the bottom of the neck, and there were metal buckles on both sides. Once sat on, it seemed to be able to protect the rider's waist, buttocks, and legs. Fury said, "In our Yin and Yang magician's practice, the 3 crowns, 6 crowns, and 9 crowns are all difficult hurdles. They are also the biggest breakthroughs in terms of strength. When one's strength exceeds 3 crowns, when one uses magic, not only can one release their own magic, but they can also use the magic elements between heaven and earth for their own use. At the same time, they can draw out their own magic attribute totems, and their strength will increase exponentially. When one breaks through to 6 crowns, in addition to another leap in magic power, one's magic power will be able to change at will and multiply endlessly. In this case, as long as you can find a suitable magical beast, and under the condition that it agrees or is weak, you can successfully form a contract with it. Then, it will become your combat partner. Many magicians who are above rank 6 call them mounts, but I don't think so. Only close partners can help each other to the greatest extent on the battlefield." Ji Dong said in surprise. "So you're saying that after a magician reaches the 6th crown, they will have their own magical beast companion?" Fury shook his head and said, "You can't say that. If it's just finding a normal magical beast to form a contract, it's very easy, and it's also not difficult to find a particularly strong magical beast. Magicians who are able to break through to 6 crowns are all experts of their generation, and they only have one chance to form a contract. Therefore, most of them will choose very carefully. If they find a particularly strong magical beast, They will also find some experts to help them subdue it before releasing the contract. This is what most magicians do, but Thunder and I are different. If it's just like that, it would be a slave contract. Although it can make the magical beast listen to orders, it would be very difficult to make it wholeheartedly. Thunder and I met by chance. I helped it eliminate a strong opponent, and it also acknowledged me. That's why we have the equality contract now. We are good friends, and it will not be more than 100 miles away from me. As long as I summon it with thunder and lightning, through the power of the contract, it will come to my side. Other than me, you are the first batch of passengers. Lon Bauer, who was at the side, was so surprised that her small mouth turned into a circle, and her cute little dimples deepened. She said, "Senior Brother Fury, you mean to let us ride it?" Fury laughed and said, "What? Are you afraid? Junior Brother, look at the dragon's saddle on Thunder's back. It was made for me by Uncle Master. Now you should understand why Uncle Master is so popular in the academy. Even the directors don't dare to offend him. Don't be fooled by Uncle Master's slovenly appearance. He is the richest man in the Heavenly STEM Academy. Apart from me and Master, he makes magical weapons for other people, and he has to collect money. Of course, there will be another one in the future." Ji-dong really understood. In other places on the continent, magisters with 6 crowns and above were rare, but in the Heavenly STEM Academy, there were many of them. One could imagine that when these magisters with 6 crowns had their own mounts, they would naturally need the assistance of some magical equipment in order to be more compatible with their mounts, just like the dragon's saddle on Thunder's body. In this way, how could they not be valued? Who would dare to offend this old man? Lon Bauer looked at Fury a little enviously and said, "Senior Fury, no wonder everyone calls you the Thunder Emperor. I didn't expect you to be a demonic dragon master. Dragons are the strongest branch of magical beasts. Even a newborn dragon is a rank 6 existence, and an adult dragon is at least a rank 9 cultivation. Some especially powerful dragons can even become a rank 10 divine beast. I heard that there are only a total of 7 or 8 demonic dragon masters in the continent. Giant dragons are extremely arrogant, and it is too difficult to obtain their recognition." Fury chuckled and said, 7, 8? That is only what the average magisters know, or should I say the Magisters Association spread the news. In reality, according to what I know, this number is not lower than 20. I can secretly tell you that there are at least 4 demon dragons in our Heavenly STEM Academy. The overall strength of the magisters in our Heavenly STEM Academy is enough to surpass any empire on the continent. This time, even Ji-dong couldn't help but be shocked. Although he already had a very high opinion of the Heavenly STEM Academy, he never would have thought that it would be so powerful. Fury continued, "Although the Dragon Clan is powerful, they are not the only powerful ones. There are also some special magical beasts that can cultivate to the level of a level 10 divine beast. You will know more when your cultivation increases in the future. Now, it's time for us to set off. With Thunderbolt as our means of transportation, 500 miles won't take more than 2 hours. Roar!" Thunder obviously couldn't speak like Feng Shuang, but it could understand Fury's words. It growled with some dissatisfaction and slowly crouched down. Fury laughed and said, "Thunder and I are telepathic. It is saying that I have underestimated it. 500 miles an hour is enough. Come, let's depart." As he spoke, he grabbed Ji-dong and Lon Bauer with each hand. With the tip of his foot, he leaped up like an arrow and flew directly onto Thunder's back. He placed Lon Bauer and Ji-dong on the dragon's saddle. Both of them were underage and much smaller than Fury. Although it was a little crowded sitting on the wide dragon's saddle together, it was still acceptable. Fury pressed lightly on the dragon's saddle. Amidst the clanging sound, Ji-dong and Lon Bauer felt their waist and legs tighten. The bluish-purple dragon's saddle quickly closed. Just like what Ji-dong had seen earlier, the entire dragon saddle was completely sealed, fixing their bodies in place. Although it looked very high up, there was no danger of them falling off. However, this made Ji-dong feel awkward. His and Lan Baoer's bodies were basically buckled together by the dragon's saddle. There was no gap to speak of. Lan Baoer's back was pressed tightly against Ji-dong's chest. Their thighs and calves were all pressed tightly against each other. This was the first time that Lan Baoer had been so close to a man. Her pretty face immediately turned bright red. Fortunately, she was sitting at the front. Even so, Ji-dong could see that her small and delicate ears were stained red. Ji-dong's situation was even worse than Lan Baoer's. He wasn't a young man who didn't know anything. He had ample experience from his previous life. With this contact, he immediately smelled the youthful scent coming from Lan Baoer's body, especially the contact between her thighs and his lower body. Although there were 2 layers of clothing separating them, the soft and supple feeling did not weaken at all. His empty arm was even more at a loss as to what to do. Fury sat behind them, one hand grabbing onto a bone spur on Thunder's back. He shouted, "Thunder, let's go!" As Lan Baoer exclaimed, Thunder's thick and powerful hind legs suddenly kicked off. Its huge body was like a bolt of lightning that shot into the sky. The strong inertia immediately caused Ji-dong and Lan Baoer to press against each other. Ji-dong's hands also subconsciously wrapped around Lan Baoer's slender waist. Lan Baoer even closed her eyes tightly. This was their first time riding a dragon. The strong excitement made them temporarily forget the awkwardness of their bodies. Fury, who was sitting behind the 2 of them, had a somewhat evil smile on his face. All of this was clearly part of his plan. To him, helping his little junior brother secretly was a piece of cake. The purple thunder heavenly dragon's flying speed was like lightning. Although the moment it rose into the sky was filled with a strong sense of push, Ji-dong and Lan Baoer didn't feel a strong wind blowing against them. Lan Baoer's eyes were closed, but Ji-dong could see clearly that when the purple thunder heavenly dragon took off, a layer of bluish-purple halo appeared on the surface of its body. It seemed to have the effect of breaking through the air, allowing it to fly even faster. Sticking close to Lan Baoer's body, Ji-dong could feel her trembling slightly. The friction between their bodies became even more exciting. Ji-dong didn't let go of the hand that was wrapped around her waist. His mind kept thinking about the flaming bar, and he tried to calm his racing heart. However, although his mind could calm down by relying on his emotions about the flaming bar, the body of a teenager couldn't be that calm. Not long after, Lan Baoer opened her eyes. She looked at the clouds that kept passing by in front of her, and her agitated emotions gradually calmed down. She said in a low voice, "Ji-dong, is there something in your pants pocket? It's poking me." Ji-dong's face stiffened. Fury, who was sitting behind them, even covered his mouth, trying hard not to laugh out loud. However, what made Fury's eyes widen was that Ji-dong actually replied calmly, "Yes, I have a magical weapon in my pocket, but I can't take it out because of the dragon's saddle. Just bear with it for a while." Fury's expression became strange as he thought to himself, "Little junior brother, you're really a talent." What made Fury even more speechless was that Lan Baoer actually replied seriously, "All right, it's fine. Although your weapon is quite hard, it doesn't have any sharp parts. It also seems to be quite flexible, but it's a little big." The corner of Ji-dong's mouth twitched. For the first time, he felt that the girl in front of him was quite cute. He didn't seem to have seen this kind of innocence in his previous life. Cough, cough. Fury coughed violently. He only felt that he would rather fight with a 7-crowned opponent than endure it like this. This pair of little fellows was really too interesting. As expected, in less than half an hour, the purple thunder heavenly dragon had already begun to descend. Faint lightning flashed outside, as if a bolt of lightning had struck down. It was a spectacular sight. From afar, Ji-dong saw a city below. It wasn't very big, and seemed to be about the same size as Fire City. A few dozen miles in front of the city was a mountain range that was completely covered in green. Clearly, this was their destination, the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. What made Lon Bauer exclaim once again was that the purple thunder heavenly dragon suddenly descended. Its huge body seemed to have smashed down, and the strong sense of weightlessness made one's heart feel as if it was about to jump out of their throat. Fury couldn't help but be surprised at Ji Dong's calm state of mind. Facing such a situation, he only slightly tightened his arms around Lon Bauer and didn't have any abnormal reactions. This was because Ji Dong only needed to tell himself that even his eldest senior brother wasn't nervous, so what was there for him to be nervous about? This was a rank 8 giant dragon. For some reason, Lon Bauer also calmed down after being hugged by Ji Dong like this. She even took the initiative to lean on Ji Dong's chest, as if she was borrowing the sense of security that his body brought. As expected, when thunder was about 100 meters away from the ground, its huge wings suddenly spread open. In the dense sound of thunder in the air, its downward momentum instantly slowed down, and it retracted its wings. It had already landed steadily on the ground. To be able to withstand such a huge impact, it could be seen how sturdy its wings were. Fury opened the dragon's saddle, grabbed the two of them, and jumped down from Thunder's back. Ji Dong immediately felt the magic weapon that had been suppressed for almost an hour relax, and he quickly helped it adjust its position. On the other hand, Lon Bauer looked at him curiously and said, "Ji Dong, can you let me take a look at that magic weapon of yours?" Ji Dong's answer was very cool. There were only 2 words, "It's a secret." Chapter 64. Hearing Ji Dong and Lon Bauer's conversation, Fury finally couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. Lon Bauer glared at Ji Dong and said to Fury, "Senior Fury, aren't we going to Earth Spirit City?" Fury suppressed his laughter and said, "Yes, yes, to Earth Spirit City. Let's go." Lon Bauer turned her head and ran in the direction of Earth Spirit City. As soon as she turned around, the expression on her face changed. It was as red as blood. If she had not used her own water demonic power to suppress her chi and blood, she would have made a fool of herself. When it came to the matters between a man and a woman, girls always understood it earlier than boys. She was already a 15-year-old girl, so how could she not know what the magic weapon that Ji Dong mentioned was? However, in order to avoid awkwardness, she could only play along with Ji Dong's words. Who knew that when she finally got rid of the awkwardness, she wanted to tease Ji Dong, but she got a serious answer. Instead, she could no longer control the shyness in her heart, and even her own magic power was a little unstable. With Ji Dong's abilities, he couldn't feel the change in Lon Bauer's demon power, but how could Fury not feel it? Of course, he wouldn't say it out loud. Nudging Ji Dong, Fury lowered his voice and said, "Junior, don't do this in the future. This isn't enjoyment, it's more like suffering." Fury suddenly understood and said, "That's true. You can see it but not eat it, so you're more anxious." Fury suddenly said, "That's true. You can see it but not eat it, so you're even more anxious." Ji Dong was speechless. Although he knew that Fury had misunderstood him, he couldn't be bothered to explain. Fury gestured to the purple thunder sky dragon, and the dragon soared into the sky again, disappearing into the clouds in the blink of an eye. The 3 of them headed towards Earth Spirit City together. Once they entered the city, Fury found a small bar that was open during the day to rest. He let Ji Dong and Lon Bauer go by their own things. Their preliminary examination would take a month, so they naturally needed to prepare well. Ji Dong and Lon Bauer did not go together. Perhaps it was because of the awkwardness from before, or because the items they needed were different for men and women, but Ji Dong and Lon Bauer did not go together. Instead, they went their separate ways and agreed to meet up with Fury 2 hours later. Ji Dong did not pay much attention to what had happened earlier. After all, his mental age was already over 30 years old. He was not a child who had never seen a woman before. Moreover, his heart was already filled with the flaming bar, so he did not think too much about it. When it came to food, he mainly bought more than 10 large leather bags to store clean water. Water was the source of life, so it was naturally indispensable. Then, he bought some simple and easily preserved dry biscuits and cured meat. When it came to food, Ji-dong did not have high expectations. Finally, he bought a tent. Initially, he had intended to buy a single tent, but after some thought, he bought a 2-person tent. Along with some simple daily necessities, Ji-dong was done with his shopping. He stored everything in his storage bracelet. Now, he felt that the storage bracelet was really too convenient. After finishing everything, he put on the dual radiance of sun and moon glove. With this item, even if he did not deliberately cultivate, he would still be able to maintain the gradual increase of his mana. Moreover, after entering the Earth Spirit Mountains, it would also improve his abilities. When Ji-dong returned to the tavern, Lon Bauer had not returned yet. Fury was leisurely sipping his wine and said, "Junior, do you want a drink?" Ji-dong shook his head and said, "Senior, as an outstanding bartender, one must know how to taste wine. Otherwise, one would not be able to know the extent of one's abilities. An outstanding wine taster must not drink easily, and must maintain the sensitivity of their tongues. Therefore, unless it is absolutely necessary, I rarely drink. There are even fewer wines that I can truly taste." Fury chuckled and said, "Junior, what you said makes sense. No wonder I can't compare to you in bartending. However, drinking itself is also a kind of pleasure, and we have different views. I can't go a day without drinking. You see wine as an art, and I see wine as a companion. In terms of bartending and tasting wine, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for me to surpass you, but I also enjoy more than you do. Or perhaps I should say that we enjoy different kinds of pleasure." Ji-dong smiled faintly, and sat down opposite Fury and said, "Senior is right, we only enjoy different kinds of pleasure. However, for me the greatest pleasure is to improve through cultivation. Senior is my goal." It wasn't until today that Ji-dong realized how powerful Fury was. Not only was he strong, but he also had an 8th-order Purple Thunder Heaven's Dragon as a mount. To him, this was definitely an unreachable strength. Other than envy, it was also a strong motivation for him. Ji-dong's goal was to reach, or even surpass, Fury's current strength before the age of 29. Fury said, "Junior, you are a person who is willing to endure hardship, and you can also withstand loneliness. Otherwise, no matter how talented you are, it would be impossible for you to raise your cultivation to the double crown in just 2 months. This preliminary exam is a test for you, and also a way to accumulate experience. Only when you face a real enemy will a person's potential be completely stimulated, so you must take it seriously. Also, don't forget your mission with Bao Air. Try your best to experiment with the triple elemental combination technique, and remember your feelings. When you return to the school, the board of directors will personally ask you about it. This time, all the magical beast cores you obtain from hunting will belong to you. Other than the magical beast cores of your own element, the magical beast cores of the other elements can be sold when you return to the school. We magicians need strong financial support for our training, so it's important to accumulate as much as possible." Ji-dong asked with some doubt, "Senior, do magicians still need money to train?" Fury laughed and said, "Of course. Whether it's to buy magic skills or magic equipment, it's an astronomical figure. You saw the dragon saddle on Thunder's back. It's just a dragon saddle, but its materials cost me almost 300,000 gold coins. This is also because Uncle Master's skills are outstanding, and he didn't charge me for forging it. Otherwise, even millions of gold coins might not be enough to exchange for such a high-grade magic weapon. The dragon saddle is just a small part of it. I've been thinking about earning money ever since I signed the contract with Thunder for 3 years. I've been buying as many top-grade materials as possible, but I've only completed half of it. This is after I was conferred the title of Earl by the Southern Fire Empire, and I received some assistance from the Empire. The higher the level of a magician, the more money they burn. And there's no end to it. Just like this pair of gloves on your hands, if you were to auction it off at the Magicians' Guild, any one of them could be sold for more than 300,000 gold coins, and there's still a demand but no supply. So, among us magicians who have broken through the 6 crowns, there's a popular saying, "It's easy to get a mount, but it's hard to equip the mount and yourself." Jidong laughed and said, "It's still too early to think about these things, but don't worry, senior. I'll definitely work hard in the Earth Spirit Mountain Range." Fury said seriously, "You'll work hard, but you have to remember that you can't go too deep. There are some magic beasts in the center of the Earth Spirit Mountain Range that even I can't handle, so don't provoke them. I suggest you and Bao Air hunt some low-level magic beasts on the outskirts of the mountain range to gain experience, then gradually go deeper. Don't go any deeper once you reach the rank 4 magic beasts territory. Normally, magic beasts won't easily cross their territory." The two of them waited for the time it took to drink a cup of tea before Lan Bao finally returned. With one look, they could see that she also had a magical weapon like a storage bracelet. She didn't have anything else on her. Seeing Jidong, Lan Bao couldn't help but blush. "Senior Fury, Jidong, I've kept you waiting." Fury said, "No problem, waiting for girls is very normal. Let's go. You'll enter the Earth Spirit Mountain Range today. The earlier you start, the earlier you finish." In the process of leaving Earth Spirit City, Jidong could clearly see many people dressed in Magic Master attire heading in the same direction as them. Their destination seemed to be the Earth Spirit Mountain Range, and there were quite a few of them. Fury said to the two of them, "In the Earth Spirit Mountain Range, not only do you have to be wary of the magic beasts, but you also have to be wary of these people. They're all here to make a fortune, hunting magic beasts for their cores, and obtaining violence. There are often cases of people killing each other, but you don't have to be afraid. Normally, these magic beast hunters aren't very strong. If you meet someone strong, you just have to show your academy badge, and you'll be safe. The Heavenly STEM Academy, especially our Yin-Yang School, is not a place that just anyone can offend." At this point, Fury's face clearly showed a hint of anger. Not long after leaving Earth Spirit City, the Earth Spirit Mountain Range grew larger in front of them. In the distance, Jidong could already see the camp of the army stationed at the foot of the mountain. Here, the army of the Middle-Earth Empire had specially set up a checkpoint. One was to prevent the magic beasts from rushing out of the Earth Spirit Mountain Range to harm people, and the other was to collect the entry fee of these magic beast hunters. 100 gold coins was already a huge sum to a normal person, and the Earth Spirit Mountain Range was fraught with danger. But even so, large numbers of soul masters would still come here every year. It was said that the entry fee was enough to support the 4 great armies stationed around the mountain range, and still have a surplus. The 3 of them came to the checkpoint. There were at least 10 magic masters queuing up in front of them. Not only did they have to pay the entry fee, they also had to go through registration before they could enter the mountain range. Seeing that Jidong and Lan Bao were young, the few magic masters in front of them laughed softly from time to time. They said something, their eyes full of ill intentions. Looking at them, a few words flashed through Jidong's mind. The strong preyed on the weak. He could imagine that if these people knew about his senior's abilities, they probably wouldn't dare to be like this. Very soon, it was their turn. The registration form was very detailed. They had to fill in their name, age, magic type, and magic rank. Just as Jidong was about to fill in, Fury said, "You don't have to fill in your magic type and rank." The person in charge of the registration was an officer who looked to be in his 30s. Previously, he had been casually collecting the money. Suddenly hearing Fury's words, he glared at him and said, "Who said we don't have to fill in? These are the rules. If you don't follow the rules, get lost." The dozens of soldiers guarding the checkpoint immediately gathered. Amidst the clanking sounds of armor, sharp spears were already pointed at Hyoheim and the other two. Fury's eyes were filled with power as he snorted coldly. In an instant, it was as if a clap of thunder had exploded in the air, causing the soldiers to retreat. The officer also jumped up and pulled out his sword, shouting at Fury in a threatening manner, "Do you want to rebel?" Fury didn't even bother to reply. He casually tossed a ball of red light onto the table. With a thud, it completely embedded itself into the table. The officer subconsciously stretched his head out to take a look. Instantly, his face turned pale. With a clang, the sword in his hand fell to the ground. He fell to his knees and said, I didn't know it was the Earl's arrival. I am guilty." Fury waved his hand as if he was shooing away a fly. He said, "All right, stop talking nonsense. All of you, get lost. I want to accompany my juniors into the Earth Spirit Mountains. Do I still need to register now?" The officer smiled apologetically and said, "No, of course not. My lords, please, please." Fury raised his hand and pressed on the edge of the table. The special token with the engraved number jumped up and landed in his hand. He brought Ji Dong and Lan Bauer through the checkpoint and walked towards the Earth Spirit Mountains with their heads held high. After passing through the checkpoint, Ji Dong asked in surprise, "Senior, aren't you the Earl of our Southern Fire Empire? Why did that officer call you that?" Fury smiled faintly and said, "Although the title was bestowed by the Southern Fire Empire, the 5 great empires have issued a statement at the same time, acknowledging my status as an Earl in the continent. This is the honor I received after entering the Holy Evil battlefield for the 2nd time. Even if you took out your special token, they wouldn't dare to stop me." Lan Bauer said timidly, "But senior, we didn't pay just now." Fury laughed and said, "Silly girl, look at him. Would he dare to ask me for money? I didn't let you register in detail because I was afraid that they would sell the information. It wouldn't be good if someone with bad intentions tried to take advantage of you. Also, if I revealed my identity, the people who entered the Earth Spirit Mountains would definitely get the news. They would have to think twice before meeting you." As they were talking, the 3 of them had already arrived at the foot of the mountain. With regards to Fury's good intentions, Ji Dong couldn't help but secretly praise him. This was strength. The Earl was recognized by the continent. This was probably more authoritative than any other empire's duke. At the same time, he also realized the special status of the Heavenly STEM Academy in the continent. No wonder none of the students chose to retreat even though they knew that going to the Saint Evil battlefield would be dangerous. Fury stopped and said, "Everything from now on will depend on yourselves. Don't hold back and be careful. Go." Ji Dong and Lan Bauer bid farewell to Fury and finally stepped into the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Fury watched them disappear into the forest, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "Little brother, I'll be waiting for your good news. I'm looking forward to seeing your dual elemental fire magic shine in its true glory." Chapter 65. After entering the Earth Spirit Mountain range, Ji Dong and Lan Bauer leapt through the forest. Very quickly, the 2 of them climbed to the top of the first mountain. Lan Bauer stopped and said, "Ji Dong, we'll be staying in this mountain for a month. Do you have any plans?" Ji Dong shook his head and said, "Senior suggested that we stay in the outskirts of the forest for a period of time to adapt to actual combat. Then, we'll gradually go deeper. At the same time, we'll also test out our 3-elemental combination technique." Lan Bauer said, "How did you and Ling Yu complete your combination technique last time?" Ji Dong said, "To be honest, I'm not very clear, because I didn't see how Ling Yu attacked at that time. It should be that her water magic power first fell on the opponent's body and invaded it, and when my magic skill was also used on the opponent, the 3 magic skills of the 3 attributes came into effect, thus erupting a considerable lethality. Although water and fire restrain each other, but in a sense, from extreme cold to extreme heat, it will produce a special lethality. For example, If a piece of metal is first frozen and then suddenly calcined with a fierce fire, it is very likely that its internal structure will be destroyed, causing it to collapse. Therefore, since the combination of the three magic skills is established, what we need to test is its degree of success. Lon Bauer nodded blankly and said, "Although I don't really understand, we'll do whatever you say. I'll listen to you." Ji Dong didn't expect Lon Bauer to be so agreeable. He was slightly stunned, then nodded and said, "Let's go. Be careful, we may encounter magical beasts at any time." As he said that, Ji Dong took the initiative to walk in front of them. As he observed the movements around him, he carefully moved forward. A month's time was very sufficient. He wasn't in a hurry, safety was his top priority. After walking for about half an hour, the two of them gradually entered the inner parts of the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Along the way, they also encountered some low-level magical beasts, but most of them were of the first rank. The lower the rank of the magical beast, the less likely it was to have a crystal core. Moreover, low-level crystal cores didn't have much practical use. The two of them didn't kill these low-level magical beasts, but continued to move forward. Their target was at least a second-rank magical beast. As they were moving forward, suddenly, with a whoosh, a green light suddenly jumped out from the side and went straight for Ji Dong, who was walking in front. "Be careful," Lon Bauer exclaimed. Ever since she had entered the Earth Spirit Mountains, she had been a little nervous. After all, she was only 15 years old. If not for Ji Dong's presence in front of her, which gave her a sense of security, she would not have had the courage to venture deep into the mountains. Now that she had discovered the situation, her exclamation gave Ji Dong a fright. The scarlet third fire shone brightly. Facing the sudden attack, Ji Dong simply and directly punched out. It was the Flame Sovereign King's demonic skill, Scorching Sun Devour, that he was most familiar with. With a bang, sparks flew everywhere. Only then did Lon Bauer see that it was a thin and small wood badger. Its sharp teeth were biting down on Ji Dong's neck. Its body was surrounded by a faint green light, and its two front claws had wooden thorns that were about 3 inches long. This was a very ordinary second-rank wood-type magical beast. The position of Ji Dong's Scorching Sun Devour was just right at the hard head of the wood badger. With a low muffled sound and sparks flying everywhere, the wood badger's body had been dyed a fiery red. To Lon Bauer's surprise, the wood badger was not blown away by Ji Dong's punch. Instead, it seemed to be glued to his fist. The green light on its body flickered rapidly, resisting the invasion of the third fire. Unfortunately, all this was in vain. The explosive power of the third fire was the strongest of the 10 elements. The 2 crowns of a magic master were equivalent to the 2 ranks of a magical beast. Ji Dong's ability to condense magic and explode was not something that an ordinary magical beast could compare with. In an instant, the wood magic protecting the wood badger's body had been shattered. His right shoulder leaned forward and hit the wood badger that was being sucked in by the Scorching Sun Devour. The whole body of the wood badger flashed violently, and it was also abruptly interrupted when it wanted to use the wood magic skill to resist. Immediately after the Scorching Sun collapse, the Scorching Sun Blast had already brought a huge pillar of fire, completely swallowing the wood-type magical beast that was less than 1 meter long. It did not even have the time to let out a cry before it was already charred. Lon Bauer had also faced Ji Dong's Scorching Sun Triple Strike, but at that time she had taken the initiative to attack with her own advanced hit skill, Gui Water Image. At this time, she saw Ji Dong's power from the side and felt the powerful power of the triple strike even more deeply. The triple strike was superimposed, compressed, and finally unleashed completely. Once the first strike hit, the enemy would not be able to escape. There was no doubt that this was a top-notch hit skill. The Scorching Sun Devour and the Scorching Sun Collapse were both standard skills, and the Scorching Sun Blast itself was an advanced hit skill. Although the power of the triple strike was not comparable to a sure kill skill, among the hit skills that Lon Bauer knew, there was no one that could compare to it. Otherwise, how could it instantly kill a Class 2 magical beast? Previously, when they were moving forward, Ji Dong did not speak much and kept a low profile. However, once he was attacked, his sudden burst of violence left a deep impression in Lan Bao's heart. With the instant kill of the scorching sun triple strike, the nervousness that Lan Bao had felt when she first entered the Earth Spirit Mountain range had clearly faded a little. The shoulders that were not too broad in front of her made her feel more secure. With a ding, a small green crystal flew out from the charred head of the wood badger that had already been smashed to the ground. Lan Bao hurriedly went forward and picked it up. It was a wood-type Class 2 crystal core. "Your luck is not bad." Lan Bao handed the crystal core to Ji Dong. However, Ji Dong did not take it. He said, "You keep it." Lan Bao said anxiously, "How can I do that? You killed the magical beast." Ji Dong turned his head to look at her and frowned slightly. He said, "We are partners now, and we will be for the next month. This time, no matter how many crystal cores we obtain in the preliminary test, other than keeping the ones that suit us, the rest will be divided equally." Lan Bao was stunned for a moment. Frankly speaking, this was the first time that she had seen a magical beast drop a crystal core. She was a little excited, but the youth in front of her, who was clearly younger than her by a few months, was acting as if nothing had happened. It was as if he had done something insignificant. His calmness was something that she could not compare with. Thinking back to the way she had challenged him in the academy, she could not help but feel a little ashamed. Level was indeed not the decisive factor in determining the true strength of a demon master. "How can that be? Your strength is above mine. It should belong to whoever killed it," Lan Bao said hurriedly. She did not want Ji Dong to think that she was a girl who liked to take advantage of others. Ji Dong shook his head and said, "Since we are partners, we must first trust each other. Moreover, don't forget that I am of the Bing and Ding fire element. The attributes of the crystal cores that suit me are more than those that suit you. I have already taken advantage of you. That's settled. Let's go." With that, he did not give Lan Bao a chance to refute and continued to walk forward. Looking at Ji Dong's somewhat proud and aloof back, Lan Bao muttered, "This guy, can't he be a little gentler? I am a girl." Ji Dong was a perfectionist. Just like when he had killed the wood badger earlier, he had not prepared to give the wood badger a chance to fight back. At the same time, when the first devourer of the sun hit the wood badger, he had restrained his magic. Otherwise, with the dual radiant gloves of Lunasolar, he would have been able to create an even more terrifying effect. The reason why he did not use a dual attribute combination skill and chose to use the triple strike of the sun was also deliberate. The wood badger belonged to the yang wood element, which was the first wood element. The Bing fire element first subdued Gingjin, and then subdued first wood, so it was most suitable to deal with this kind of yang wood magical beast. At the same time, through the last battle with Lan Bao, he had fully understood the powerful power of the triple strike of the sun. Only with more practice would he be able to make this skill even more terrifying. After encountering the wood badger, Ji Dong changed his strategy. After continuing a short distance, he began to move horizontally through the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Although he did not carefully observe, he could still feel Lan Bao's nervousness. To them, Class 2 magical beasts were not a big threat. It was best to first gain some combat experience here and practice their magic skills. Very quickly, a day had passed. Ji Dong and Lan Bao had encountered more than 10 Class 2 magical beasts, and without exception, they had all died at the hands of the two. Lan Bao's courage had gradually grown. The students who could join the Enyang Hall were all geniuses among geniuses, and they had gradually developed a tacit understanding with Ji Dong. It was a pity that although the two of them had been experimenting, they had not been able to create the destructive effect of the three-attribute combination skill. After a day of observation, Jidong had discovered that the magical beasts in the Earth Spirit Mountain range were mainly wood and earth attributed magical beasts. The other types of magical beasts were much lesser. After a day of hard work, they had obtained a total of 6 Class 2 life crystals. 5 of them were wood and earth attributed, and only one was different. It was a metal attributed one, which was not suitable for them. Jidong found some firewood and started a bonfire. He and Lon Bauer sat around the fire to heat up their rations. Lon Bauer's preparations were more ample than Jidong's. She had even brought seasonings and fruit. After a day of hunting, Lon Bauer's mood had gradually improved. After the fear in her heart had disappeared, she felt a strong sense of novelty towards this strange world. Jidong, this Earth Spirit Mountain range, seems to have very few fire and water attributed magical beasts. Let's go deeper tomorrow. Class 2 magical beasts are really not much of a challenge. Jidong looked at her and said, "Are you ready?" Lon Bauer was stunned for a moment, then helplessly said, "You don't have to be so direct. I admit that I was a little scared when I first entered, but I'm much better now. Don't worry, I won't be a burden to you." Jidong nodded. "Then let's go deeper tomorrow." If it had been just him, he would have directly entered the Class 3 magical beast area yesterday. He would not have waited a day. After a day of contact, Lon Bauer realized that Jidong was a very calm person. Only in battle would he reveal his arrogance and fiery temper. Normally, he did not speak much, and spent most of his time observing his surroundings. In a day, the two of them had not spoken more than 20 words. Other than exchanging battle experiences, Jidong would not say a word to her, nor did he ask about her situation. When she was in the water department, Lon Bauer had already gotten used to being surrounded by her classmates. Now that she was with Jidong, she was not used to it. However, she had a gentle personality. If Jidong did not take the initiative to talk to her, she would not pester him. This made Jidong feel very satisfied. At the very least, Lon Bauer was not a problem. Jidong at night. How are we going to rest at night? Seeing that the two of them had already eaten dinner, Lon Bauer finally mustered up the courage to ask the big question in her heart. Jidong raised his head to look at her and pointed to the tent he had already set up. He said, "We will take turns to keep watch at night. Each person will keep watch for 4 hours. This night will be over. You go to sleep first. When it's time, I'll call you to replace me." Previously, Lon Bauer had been struggling with this problem. Although they were still young, they were alone. Lon Bauer knew that she was beautiful, but her strength was not Jidong's match. Therefore, she was a little nervous. She did not think that Jidong would solve the problem with a simple sentence. "Oh, also, don't take off your clothes when you sleep at night. Magical beasts may appear at any time. You must be prepared to deal with them." Jidong reminded her again. Lon Bauer could not help but look at Hyoheim's moving eyes. Although Lon Bauer saw indifference in his black eyes, there was more clarity and calmness. There was not the slightest bit of unusual emotion. Although she was at ease, she was also a little disappointed. How could a girl, especially a beautiful girl, not want to be noticed? However, other than when she sat on the dragon's saddle, Lon Bauer felt that Jidong was a real man. She did not receive any more attention from him. She really wanted to ask Jidong, "Am I not beautiful?" If she really asked Jidong this question, perhaps Jidong would answer her, "It's not that you're not beautiful enough, it's just that you're not perfect enough." With the perfect flaming bar in his heart, how could he tolerate anyone else? Lon Bauer went into the tent to rest. Jidong sat cross-legged by the campfire. He did not enter meditation. While sensing the movements around him, he slowly absorbed the mana in the air with the dual solar and lunar radiance glove. He had no intention of meeting the flaming bar. After all, Fury was supervising the preliminary examination. Although he did not know where his senior brother was, it would not be good if he found out that he had the ability to meet the flaming bar. Although Jidong did not tell the flaming bar how long he would not go to the Earth's core, He believed that the flaming bar could see everything that happened here. After an uneventful night, Ji Dong woke Lon Bauer up punctually in the middle of the night. He returned to the tent to cultivate. This made Lon Bauer speechless. She secretly thought that this guy was not gentlemanly at all. Ji Dong's cultivation continued until after dawn. He was full of energy again. After putting away the tent, the two of them set off again. This time, their target was the area with the Class 3 magical beasts, which was also the main destination of their preliminary examination.